This is actually Zachary Hughes, man that's standing trial right now for the murder of Christina Parnell. It is killing schedule. Incredible talent. Incredible. All right, that's enough. Yeah, super talent. It is so difficult to understand why someone with that kind of talent would blow their life up, right? He was not even involved in the relationship with Christina Parcell. That it is so hard to understand. Now, there could be like some complex trauma, something from childhood. Perhaps he himself had been victimized by someone. And when he learned about the abuse of Christina Parcell's daughter, maybe it was sort of a vigilante justice moment. Maybe he saw himself as a protector of the little girl. It's so hard to understand. This is a very confusing case. Now, I did see that some of you guys are talking about Megan Boswell, the murder of Evelyn Boswell. It is with the jury now. They're on jury watch. It was turned over today. What a horrible case. And I know that there's a lot of people that are talking about Megan Boswell, the little baby's name, Evelyn. I know that a lot of people are covering that case. I do not do those kind of cases on YouTube because I have certain reasons that it's just, I don't want any overlap. But I'll say this, I saw where Lauren and John Matthias were covering this case and talking about the murder of Evelyn Boswell. And they are talking quite a bit about personality disorder and such. And I can get all that. But for me, I feel like you can't overlook the condition of the trailer. To me, that is what you see with people with schizophrenia. And we know that the boy that she was dating, that he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And part of me wondered, was she being aggressive and a juvenile delinquent? Was she prodromal schizophrenic? It seemed like to me in the court, her affect's pretty flat. They did say that she did have some crying. I wasn't watching it that day, but certainly it's the most horrible case. And whether Megan Boswell has a severe, serious organic mental disorder, or she has a nightmare personality disorder along with antisocial personality disorder characteristics, all the way around, it's simply horrific for everyone involved. Everyone was affected. And there is a takeaway. There is a cautionary tale in this. It is not natural for people to live in a home that is basically been turned into a county trash dump. We don't naturally do that. Most animals don't do that. Like dogs and cats and deer and bears. When we have a den, when we have a home, a place that we sleep or a place that we take our food to eat, we generally keep it pretty clean. I mean, I guess an alligator doesn't, but most mammals, they do. They store their children, their offspring in a place that is free of danger and cleared and clean. So, one look at the photographs from that trailer, someone had to have known that this young woman was having some serious mental health problems. She had absolutely, just if I knew nothing else except the condition of that trailer, she absolutely should not have said, Zelda, she absolutely should not have had custody of that baby. 100%. And who steps up? Her mom steps up, her dad steps up, one of the friends, the local CPS. I mean, someone should have recognized that Megan was in crisis and that she couldn't take care of herself, much less Evelyn. And, I think people just were thinking she was immature. Maybe they thought she was rebellious, and they didn't understand what they were dealing with. So, cautionary tale here. You see somebody living in a house, in a home, in that condition, there is serious mental illness that is happening, and they need help, and you need to protect any children that may be involved. So that's what I'm going to say about the murder of Evelyn Boswell. And I saw somebody say something like, do you think we're going to be seeing another Casey Anthony verdict? No, absolutely not. No. I look for them to have a verdict tomorrow. It's going to be quick. So, all right. So we are Zachary Hughes. I did that for Zelda. Okay. All right. So that was, in fact, Zachary Hughes that we were watching at the beginning of this video. He is a Juilliard trained concert pianist, and he is uber talented. Generally, that correlates to a higher than average IQ. And I'm genuinely perplexed. What the hell would cause this man to get involved in this family dispute that he had nothing to do with? So we haven't gotten there yet in the testimony. We don't know. We don't know what drove this kid or this young man to do this. One of the questions that I have is if this John Mello, who was in Italy at the time of the murder of Christina, one of the things I wondered is, was he offered money? Was there a financial payout? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm just brainstorming, trying to figure out what this well-educated, highly talented person, what the hell was he thinking? And the other question I have for myself is, what was wrong with Christina that she kept getting these really shady men? She kept getting involved with these really, really shady men. And it looks like her sister also seemed to have lost the trust of law enforcement and the guardian ad litem. So we don't have a lot of answers right now, but it's looking more and more like perhaps John Mello, the biological father of this child, and Zachary Hughes, maybe they saw themselves as a savior of sorts, and that it was Christina and her sister that may have been living an unhealthy lifestyle. That is a guess. I'm not victim shaming or victim blaming. I'm trying to make sense of what is really just a shocking case, because there's no logic. It is pretty crazy. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started on day 2. There'll be things that I'm going to fast forward through, so this is not going to take a whole 8 hours of listening today. It's probably going to be more like, I'm going to try to cut it down to about 2 or 3 hours. So a couple of the witnesses that we're not going to learn anything by listening to them. So I'll go ahead and skip over them. So that's where we are. I hope you'll continue and stay with us and kind of talk about it with us. Please hit the thumbs up. Even if you leave, it just helps my tiny little struggling channel, and I'm appreciative. If you haven't subscribed, I hope you will. At least it will give you notifications to let you know when I have put a new video out. So let's get started. This is from today.
Bring the jury back in.
And it's a little low, and I apologize.
Defense counsel yesterday, as we are about to call a forensic technician that processed the scene at 122 Canebrake. She was responsible for taking all the photographs of the scene as it was. And like I said, we went through each of them with defense counsel, and there are a few where they've raised an objection that specifically states Exhibit 63, 64, 65. A copy of State v. Haight or Hawes, and that is 423. That is 423 SC 118. The state believes that based on Hawes and based on the circumstances of this case, that the specific photograph should be introduced to the jury as is. State v. Hawes is a very similar case with regard to the cause of death, and that it was a stabbing death, and the Supreme Court confirmed that the admission of the photographs was proper, and I'll direct the court specifically to Head Note 6. Where the photographs of the victim who was stabbed to death should have been admitted. It was not an abuse of discretion, where they went to show the circumstances of the crime scene and the location of the body. They go towards the issue of malice in this case. The state intends to elicit testimony from the forensic technician as to the significance of where the body was found, the actions that were likely to have taken after Ms. Parcell was stabbed with regard to the body, and the significance of what the blood pattern indicated. Again, I believe State v. Hawes is on point with this specific issue, and especially where we are offering testimony to extrapolate inferences that we would provide to the jury as to the circumstances surrounding Ms. Parcell's death. Defense counsel.
Your Honor, our position is just under a 403 analysis. I'm not sure there's any, I'm not sure what the relevance is. They say it goes to malice, but they can certainly describe the crime scene without having to show those photographs. So I would say under a 403 analysis, very little probative value to those pictures, and whatever probative value is outweighed by the potential prejudicial effect. I would also note the state has prepared for 2 of those photographs. They've prepared.
Can you guys hear me now?
Set of photographs with.
I put my headphones on so I could hear.
Out of the photograph. So if Your Honor does see.
If you can hear me, put a 1, please.
For the those 2 photographs, and I would also add they have other photographs.
Thank you, Sketty Nona.
That are taken from a wider angle and from that are not close-ups.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Of those areas that they are seeking to point out. So we would ask that that those other photographs that they have, which I think they can show to the court if the court needs to see them, but they would be sufficient to point out what they want to.
They're just having an argument about some photographs.
I mean, obviously, this is the first time I'm looking at photos.
The defense doesn't
is-
care.
I
That
guess
they're
the
good with
difference
it.
between 63 and 64 is you've got the victim is in it.
That's correct, Your Honor. These photographs all go to show, and what the state's going to argue is the actions that were taken after Ms. Parcell was stabbed, and it specifically goes towards the placement and the actions taken towards her body after that stabbing. As you know, the state is charged with proving premeditation to this murder. The actions that the state is alleging Mr. Hughes took, obviously during this incident, but afterwards, are highly probative to show his state of mind and the deliberation that he took before committing this murder and the steps that he took afterwards. In a normal instance, if this were simply a spur of the moment stabbing or an instance where there isn't evidence, or the state would proffer that there is evidence in this case that actions were taken after the act itself to go to show premeditation, I could see where it would be a different analysis. But these specific photographs are clearly probative of those actions that we are arguing that Mr. Hughes took in this instance. So again, the state would argue that while we do have several photographs that show different angles, they are all probative. And I don't believe that the danger of unfair prejudice or spurring the emotions of the jury substantially outweighs that probative value that we're putting forth to the jury.
Okay. I'm going to take a quick break and then I'll be back. Okay.
And Your Honor, we would ask that there are some other photographs that we are not objecting to. We would ask that Your Honor be allowed to view those as well, so you can look at those in conjunction with the ones you've been given to see if those are necessary as the.
So the defense is not unhappy with the
The crime
photographs.
scene is a huge portion of what the state wants to offer to the jury for them to make that inference as to malice in this murder. So again,
There's some things about the crime scene itself that they're going to argue about. One of the things that the defense wants to use is that there is apparently a fresh new bag of cocaine that is found at the crime scene. And, they're taking the position that, Zachary Hughes, maybe they're going to say he was there to just visit with Christina or to help Christina, but that maybe a drug dealer came along later and sold her the cocaine. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. We are not one step closer to understanding how a guy like Zachary Hughes would have interjected himself into a family drama that resulted in the murder of a mother. We don't know how it happened. We still don't know what he was thinking. It's crazy story.
Investigative science. In the past, I've held certifications in bloodstain pattern analysis and fingerprint analysis, and I am currently part of a specialized unit called the Major Crime Scene Team in Albuquerque that responds to all homicides and officer-involved incidents.
Okay, and then I'm going to push through this a little bit because they're just going to talk about her training and background and history.
Did you take your time to review those and let me know if those are the pictures that you took at the outside of the canebrake home?
Yes, these are the photographs that I took of the exterior.
So that was what the canebrake home looked like when you arrived on the scene October 13th of 2021?
Yes.
Your Honor, this time the state would move into evidence State's Exhibit 69 through 84.
Counsel? No objection, Your Honor.
All right. 69 through 84. Ms. Ford, I'm going to go through these with you. And if you like, I have a pointer here. You need to use it.
And I do want to try to keep it on 125 to help us get through this.
Starting with State's Exhibit 69. What is State's Exhibit 69 a picture of?
So that is a photograph of the gray Lexus that was parked in the driveway.
Were you able to identify in the course of the investigation there who was driving the gray Lexus that day?
Yes, it was the victim.
Showing State's Exhibit 70.
That was the red Mercedes that was parked in the driveway as well.
Who was driving that vehicle?
Mr. Post.
He's the guy serving time for pedophilia. He molested the daughter.
That is the front side of the residence showing the windows along the front door.
72.
That is a close-up of the front door.
So it looks like a standard door.
That is a photograph of the exterior side of the front door handle.
74.
That is the gate on the right side of the residence. If you're standing facing it from the roadway, just showing the gate into the backyard area.
So is that, are you staring at Canebrake Drive there?
Yes,
Is that the red Mercedes in the driveway?
yes.
75.
That is the photograph of the back or side door of the residence.
And at this time, had the initial deputies already gone through the house?
Yes,
76.
that is a photograph of the backyard.
And so would this be looking to the opposite side that we were just reviewing where the driveway,
Yeah.
away from the driveway?
Yes, away from the driveway.
77.
That is a photograph of you were standing at that gate that we just viewed, looking at the end of the end of the backyard.
78.
That is just showing a close-up of the creek and what you can see from the backyard.
We're going to go to State's Exhibit 80.
That is the gate on the opposite side of the house, leading into the backyard.
That's looking into the backyard.
Yes,
81.
that is just showing another close-up of the backyard along with the second-story porch.
82.
That is a photograph of the nook that is underneath the second-story porch in the backside of the house.
Now you called it a nook.
Yes,
If I'm standing on Canebrake Drive, can I see somebody under there?
no, you cannot.
And if I'm standing, let me go back to State's Exhibit 78. In the backyard there, what was the collection of houses like, I'll say, with relation to the backyard of the house?
It was,
Or how close in proximity were other neighbors?
they weren't that close. They were separated by both of their own backyards, including that woodsy area and a creek.
Go to State's Exhibit 83.
So that's just another close-up of that nook area.
State's Exhibit 84.
And now we've moved out into the front yard, and that's just showing a broader photograph of that gate on the left side of the house.
So from where you're standing there, taking State's Exhibit 84, could you see into that nook there that we were just reviewing?
No, you cannot.
After reviewing the outside of the house, did you thereafter go inside the house and do the same process of taking photographs and reviewing the inside the house?
Yes,
If I showed you those photographs, would you recognize them?
yes.
I'm going to show defense counsel what is State's Exhibit 40, let me get this right here. States 38 through 62 and states 63 and 66.
Trying to push us through it. Come on, dudes.
There is one of the flower stems.
So you noted it. You said drag marks
Yes.
in this photo. Could you explain that a little bit more, how you derived that based on the pattern of the blood that is displayed in this photo?
So yes, as I referred to earlier, there's a pool of blood right there underneath of the couch. From that pool of blood, that blood being on the victim's clothing, when she was moved from that original location, it created the drag marks that you can see there on the floor. And then on top of these drag marks right here are what we refer to as drip stains. That just means that an object or person or thing that had blood on it, that blood volume dripped on top of those drag marks.
When you said you identified some flower stems in this photograph, could you show me specifically where they are? Is this what you're referring to right here?
Yes.
Okay. Showing you State's Exhibit
42.
So that is a close-up of the victim's right hand, mainly noting the chipped thumb fingernail, which is something that really stood out to me on scene.
Why does that stand out to you?
Broken fingernails can be a sign of a defensive, that the person tried to defend themselves. So that's what that broken fingernail kind of portrayed to me.
Are fingernails something you commonly collect in processing a murder scene?
Yes, it's standard procedure, but considering that one of them was broken, it became apparent that we really need to focus on those fingernails.
Showing State's Exhibit 49.
So this is another photograph of that far wall in the sitting room. Again, just showing that blood pooling underneath the couch. And then in this photograph, you can also see some more of the rose petals and the leaves that are leading into the hallway.
Were you able to find the victim's phone at the scene?
Yes, the victim's phone, it's kind of hard to see, but it is right there in that blood pool.
Right here?
Yes,
Were you able to collect it?
yes, it was collected.
Who did you subsequently give it to?
I gave it to investigator Sparkman.
I want to bring your attention specifically to the couch.
Yes.
There. What do you notice about the accumulation of blood and what the significance of the location of the blood as it relates to the couch?
So with that blood volume being located there, we call that a pooling of blood. The coagulation of the blood tells me that that a major artery was hit, and that also that is the site of where the initial incident occurred. Along with that, you can see some disturbances in the blood there. That also signifies that the couch was most likely moved after the incident.
Show you State's Exhibit 50.
So this is a close-up of that couch and coffee table area, showing the flower stems that were partially located underneath of that orange pillow and underneath the table. And it is also showing additional blood spatter that was caused. The location of that blood spatter, since it goes under the table, and the size and shape of those blood stains showed me that the table was also moved back into place after the incident.
Is that the victim's phone there in the bottom corner?
Yes.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 46.
So this is a close-up of those rose petals and leaves that are leading from the doorway to the sitting room from the hallway of the house.
So strange, isn't it?
State's Exhibit 45.
Very
So that
odd.
is the view of the sitting room from the hallway, just again showing those rose petals and leaves.
So that's the hallway looking towards the front door?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 43.
So this is a photograph of the hallway while standing in the living room, just showing how some of those flower petals go into the hallway, and also the discarded pair of sunglasses that was located in the hallway as well.
State's Exhibit 47.
This is a photograph from a further point in the living room, again, just showing that entryway into the sitting room in the hallway.
So inside, that is the sitting room in that room.
Correct.
Show you State's Exhibit 51.
So this is a photograph from on top of that console table sitting in the sitting room where the victim's purse had been located. And it's just showing that some of the rose petals and stems had made it onto that table.
State's Exhibit 52.
This is showing the victim's purse that I was just referencing, and showing that the rose petals were also inside of her purse.
Just for approximately how many murder scenes have you processed?
Say close to 150.
You ever found flowers near the body?
No.
And I'm just gonna go back really quick to 52. To the location of these flowers, were there some found inside her purse?
Yes.
Inside the items on top of the table?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 53.
So that's just another vantage point from the sitting room of all of the rose petals and the leaves that were located in that doorway.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 54.
So that is a blood stain that was located on the wall by the curtains on that front wall of the sitting room.
Were the curtains opened or closed?
The curtains were closed.
55.
So that is a close-up just with scale of that blood stain. That blood stain to me appears to be what we refer to as a transfer stain, meaning that an object or thing with blood on it touched a surface that did not have blood on it.
56.
That is a close-up of one of the gray sitting chairs next to that window on the front side of the sitting room, just showing the blood drops that had gotten into the surface of that chair.
57.
This shows those blood drips that I was referring to earlier near that gray chair. The reason that those are so significant is because they are farther away from that initial pooling that we saw underneath the couch. So what that means is that the shape of those blood drops tells me they're about 80 to 90 degrees, which means that an object with blood on it was directly over that area of the floor when that blood drop was created.
58. Where is this in that room?
That is over by the wall where those curtains and windows are located.
So chilling.
And that's the same, you're talking about the angle with which this blood was most likely transferred. That's different than what you were saying drag marks were in the earlier exhibits.
Yes, drip stains are created by a blood drop just falling in motion from gravity, kind of if you had a nosebleed and the blood was just falling out of your nose. Because that area of the living room was so far away from the initial blood pool, that was not caused from the incident. It was most likely caused, again, like I said, from an object or a thing.
I would object to the opinion testimony that's being offered. I mean, this witness has not been offered as an expert.
She is an expert.
Techs get offered as or qualified as experts. The pictures all speak for themselves.
I think they did qualify her as an expert.
She's testified to her experience in processing hundreds of these scenes and training she's had. While this is not being offered as expert testimony, she's speaking to her rationally based perception of the angle that these blood droplets came from. As to Mr. Moyer's concern, it's right for cross-examination if he wants to offer a contrary opinion or pry into why she drives her opinion, but she's simply speaking to her experience.
I'm going to overrule your objection. It's noted.
So as I was saying, those blood drops were most likely created from an object or a thing that was in that area.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 60.
So that is showing a clump of hair suspected to be the victim's that was found in an area of blood in the sitting room.
Is that area of blood what you described as the drag mark?
Yes.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 62.
So that is a blood stain that was located on that interior side of the front door. That is, once again, what we refer to as a transfer stain, meaning that an object that had blood on it touched a surface that did not.
Finally, State's Exhibit 66.
So this is a photograph of that front sitting room again, where you can see the victim that's located at the end of that drag trail, and additionally another smaller pool of blood, just signifying that wounds were still bleeding at that time.
I'm sorry, Nancy Drew. That's as loud as I can make it. It is the audio is so quiet. I had to put my headphones on. I know, Zelda. It's very
Flowers that
frustrating.
were found at the crime scene. Did you collect those and identify those?
I did.
If I showed you pictures of those, would you recognize them?
Yes.
Show defense counsel what's marked as State's Exhibit 85 through 93. Showing you what is State's Exhibit 85 through 93. So those photographs that you took of the flowers, or some of the photographs that you took?
Yes, they are.
All right, this time the state moves into evidence, State's Exhibit 85 through 93.
No objection, Your Honor. Objection 85 through 93. Present that.
I'm sure you States Exhibit 86.
So that is a bundle. Those are bundled stems with a rubber band that were located underneath of that orange pillow in the living room.
That rubber band was on the stems,
Yes,
on collection.
yes.
87.
That is just a different view of those same stems showing the leaves.
89.
So that is a close-up of one of the flowers that was found on the sitting room floor.
You said wildflower.
Yes, it is a wildflower.
That's
Correct.
not a rose.
No,
States Exhibit 90.
that is just a close-up of that same wildflower, just showing the coloring on it.
I'm going to expand on that a little bit. I'm going to show you States Exhibit 93. Are those the same stem?
No,
So the stem on the right is not a rose?
no, it's a wildflower.
States Exhibit 90.
Just another close-up of that wildflower.
Approximately how many of the wildflowers did you collect?
I'm not sure.
6, say several.
Yes.
In your processing of the house and looking through everything, did you find any vases,
No, I did not.
containers for flowers?
No.
And in processing that house, I assume, did you take several collections for potentially DNA testing or blood testing?
Yes.
What about fingerprints? Lifting?
Yes.
Now, if someone's wearing gloves, do they leave fingerprints?
No.
After you process the scene, what are your next steps upon leaving Cambridge?
So I secured all the evidence that I collected, and then the next day I responded to the autopsy.
Okay. Did you take some pictures of the autopsy?
I did.
I'm going to show you States Exhibit 109 and 110. Section 109 and 110. Are these two of the photographs you took at the autopsy?
Yes.
What do they show?
They're showing the decedent's hand, left hand, which contains her engagement ring.
Your Honor, this time the state moves into evidence States Exhibit 109 and 110.
Without objection.
Without objection, we're not going to look at that.
What are your duties when you're at the autopsy? What kind of things are you doing there?
So at autopsies, we take additional photographs of the victim and their injuries, as well as collecting clothing, DNA swabs, otherwise known as buccal swabs, fingernail clippings, head hair samples, and pubic hair samples.
Did you collect buccal swabs and fingernail clippings from Ms. Parcell?
I did.
If I showed you those collections, would you recognize them?
Yes.
Let me show you States Exhibit 94, 95, 96, and 97.
Yes, the rose petal killer, a murder. Yeah.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls
Eric Turner.
I am so curious how this guy got himself involved. It is crazy.
Please stop at the end of the bench, sir. Please place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Please be seated. your name for the record.
Eric Turner.
And Mr. What is your rank?
I'm a deputy.
Deputy?
Yes, sir.
And who do you work with?
The Greenville County Sheriff's Office.
And what do you do for the Greenville County Sheriff's Office?
I work in the school enforcement unit. I'm a school resource officer for several elementary schools in Greenville County on the east side.
And is that typically called an SRO?
It is.
That's
Yes,
School
sir.
Resource Officer?
Yes, sir.
Deputy Turner, I'm going to refer you back to October 13th, 2021. Were you working that day?
I was.
And were you called out for 122 cane break?
I responded out there. Yes, sir.
Can you tell this jury how you responded?
Sure. I was in between schools. I had just left one. Let me go back. At the time, I had 4 elementary schools. So I had just left a school and was actually headed to Buena Vista, right near where the scene was. And so on my way, the call came out. I was close by. I said, hey, I'll run by there and check on it. It's right there at my school. I just want to make sure there wasn't any threat towards my school. So
Exactly,
I
Nancy Drew.
notified dispatch that I was on the way.
I want to know how he got involved in this.
I don't know the exact time.
It's
Within
crazy.
just a few minutes of the call coming out, I was right behind the first arriving deputy. He was already out of his car.
And once you got there, what did you do?
I stood by with a gentleman later identified as Mr. Post and spoke with him while Deputy Robinson and his trainee went inside to check the residence.
And did you learn that the victim, Christina Parcell, had a daughter?
I did.
And what was your...
And I got to say this, okay? I'm not altogether convinced that Post wasn't the one who actually killed Christina. He had a lot to lose. He actually molested Christina's daughter. The reason he's in jail today is because as a part of the investigation into the murder of Christina, they took his phones and found photographs of the little girl. So it just seems to me that it makes more sense that he did it. He was the first one there. He's suspiciously like, oh, the back door's unlocked. It's always unlocked. It's just so hard to understand why this guy, Zachary, why he would do that. We're obviously, we haven't gotten to all the information yet.
her role in regards to her daughter?
So as soon as I found out that she had a daughter, I asked, do you know how old she is, where she goes to school? And he goes, actually, she goes to Buena Vista right there. That being my school, I immediately switched roles and I've got to get to the school to make sure that the school is safe. He gave me just a little bit of background, family background. So I was under the impression, hey, there may be an issue with this child. So I stood by for just a few more minutes and then I left and went to the school to make sure that everything was okay. Prior to me leaving, I actually called our front office at the school and asked, was this student there? And she said, yes, she's here. I said, do not let her leave with anybody. I want the school locked down until I get there. I'll be there in just a minute. So the school handled their protocol, did what they were supposed to do. And then I arrived and made confirmation that she was there. She was in a classroom and she was safe.
So, so as soon as you found out about Christina Parcell's daughter, you arrived at the school.
Yes, sir.
And when you arrived there, did you talk to anybody?
Just the administration. And they confirmed back to me, hey, she's in the classroom. She's good. I'm like, let's leave her there. I don't want anything to disturb her normal day until we figure out what's going on.
And then how did y'all decide when and how Christina Parcell's daughter was going to leave?
We kind of discussed what was going on. I told them, as far as I was concerned, just let her have a regular day. There's no need to take her out of the class, and let's just let her proceed with her day, leave as normal. I spoke with a couple of the investigators, and it was determined just she can leave with a family member like she normally does. They walk them up to, it's called the front path, goes out the front of the school, and they walk home because they live right there. And so we just allowed that to proceed on as normal, like she does every day.
Please answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
May it please the court. Deputy Turner, you had a body worn camera that day, did you not?
I did, sir.
And did you take steps to record some of the activities that you engaged in or around cane break on that afternoon?
I did. As soon as I got out of the car, I believe shortly after getting out, it was on.
So what time does Buena Vista let out of school typically?
2:15.
Okay. And so maybe it's a silly question, but on that day when school was let out, I would be coming home, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And being a school resource officer, you're familiar with issues related to children's attendance in school. Is that correct?
It's really none of my business. If the the tennis clerk brings it up, I may do something about it.
Deputy Turner, if a student wanted us to, let's say she didn't want to go home, would the law make her go home?
Objection or speculation.
I'm just asking if he knows that.
I mean, it has happened before, not with me.
But if a student says, I don't want to go home, I'm not going home, must the student go home?
Again,
Yes.
we're going to look into it, probably contact DSS, get them involved in it, our investigators, our crimes against children investigators, and figure out what's going on, why the child doesn't want to go home, stuff like that.
Thank you, Kathy R., for that information.
Can you redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Now a good time to take a little break.
The next witness is going to be quietly leave.
Okay, you may step down, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a morning break. Again, no discussion about this case amongst yourselves or anyone. And again, thank you, sir.
And this is Christina's sister. Very interesting testimony.
Tina Parcell. I go by Tina.
Ms. Parcell, where do you reside?
I would prefer not to give my home address, but I do live in Greenville County.
Greenville County?
Yes.
And what is your relationship to Christina Parcell?
She's my younger sister.
And so, can you tell this jury a little bit about y'all's relationship going back to the 2000s and kind of taking us through that?
Sure. I mean, she was 2 years younger than me, so we were close. We were different people, but we were, close in age, close as sisters. Early 2000s, she'd gotten married for the second time. I got married for the first time. We were both living our lives. We were close, but not intertwined, I guess would be the best way to put it. And we were friends, not best friends, but we were friends. We were still young enough where all of your childhood, younger, older sister relation, all of that baggage hadn't quite gone away yet.
And did she ever begin a relationship with John Mello?
Yes, she began dating Mr. Mello, I believe, around December of 2008.
And in 2008, where were y'all living?
2008, I lived near downtown on Glen Street, right behind Cleveland Park. My sister lived at that time, in her home in Greer with her estranged husband.
And how long did Christina Parcell and John Mello date?
They broke up, to my understanding, October of 2015, so just under 7 years.
And during that time, did she have a child?
She did. She had my niece.
And when was your niece born?
June of 2012.
And so during the time in which Christina Parcell was dating John Mello, what kind of relationship did y'all have?
So they began seeing each other, again, just based off of my sister's papers and all of that sort of thing. December of 2008, I'm the kind of person I have to put things in place and time. So December of 2009, my dad had his first stroke when he was 51. And within a year, so April or May of the next year, my sister wrote a letter cutting off contact with our whole family, saying that she had reached a new place of spiritual love and needed to only have true and pure love in her life, etc.
And so around 2009, did you see her very often?
I would see her less and less in 2009, and then beginning in 2010, she cut off contact, and we didn't see her for 4 years.
So Christina was a very troubled woman, right?
2010 to 2014, we didn't see her for 4 years.
And did y'all have the occasion to reconnect?
My sister reached back out to my parents July of 2014. My parents found out they had a grandchild. That my niece was 2 years old. My sister began reconnecting. She reached out to me. We met for, I don't know if it was lunch or dinner, but Freddy's Custard and Easley was the first time I kind of got to see her and my niece again for the first time in 2014.
So during that time, did you know where Christina Parcell was living?
She lived in a house at Easley on 3rd Avenue or 3rd Street. I don't remember Avenue or Street.
And is that where she brought home her daughter?
Yes, my understanding is I need to live with her full time. The photos I've seen of that time period, she had a room, there were photos there, they lived together.
And so she was raising your niece during that first couple of years.
Yes, and all the court documentation follows that as well.
And during that time, did you have the occasion to meet John Mello?
Not during the first few years of my niece's life because we didn't have contact. I met him maybe a time or two from 2014 to when they broke up in 2015.
Now, did they ever live together?
No, he was living with his wife at the time.
So around 2014, 2015, you and your sister sort of reconnected.
She reconnected with the whole family, correct?
And did Christina Parcell and John Miller ever engage in disputes over who had rights to their daughter?
For years, yes.
About when did that custody dispute begin?
They broke up sometime in October of 2015, and I know that she had a family court deposition in March of 2016, so almost immediately would be the best I could put it.
So about the time y'all reconnected, she was already engaged in disputes with John Mello over the custody of her daughter.
I don't believe that I don't believe they had begun in 2014 when she first started reconnecting with our family, but within that next year, shortly after they broke up.
So from that point on, were you, I won't say involved, but were you aware of the dispute, and did you support your sister during that time?
Well, sure. Not financially, emotionally, or, because we had been estranged for 4 years, that is, it sounds so trite. It's a big hurt. This is my baby sister, and I'm trying to find a way to put her back in my life. So even though she was going through this custody battle, I was also kind of trying to get over my hurt feelings with her. So we interacted, but we weren't, again, tied at the hip best friends at that point.
And so as time goes on, did the custody dispute continue?
For years, yes.
And did Christina Parcell begin a relationship with Brad Post?
Yes, she did.
About what time did she begin that relationship?
Again, based on documentation I've seen in her facts, within a few months of ending things with John Mello.
So around 2015?
Yes.
And so pushing up to 2020 timeframe, did your relationship with her grow closer?
Yes, in January of 2020, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma, which is scary. And you dropped something. It's scary. It's aggressive. My sister and I met for lunch, and we're making a plan for how are we going to get my mom through this. If something happens to mom, how are we going to take care of our dad? He's had multiple strokes. And during this lunch, she looked at me and said, I really want you to be a bigger part of my life and my niece's life. And so we started consciously choosing to be more involved with each other.
And at that time, where was everybody living?
So at that time, COVID, I was sheltering in place with my estranged husband in my marital home in Greer. That's awkward. It was. My sister, again, she rented a duplex. So when she had visitation with my niece, they would do those visitations in the duplex. And then when she was not living in the duplex, she spent her time with Brad Post.
Okay. And up until about 2020, did John Mello and Christina Parcell share custody of Aida?
Early on, I hate this phrase, but it's the only one I can really know. They had a gentleman's agreement early on about custody that suddenly nobody agreed to, so they went into court. John had primary custody. My sister had visitation, standard visitation every other weekend, weeks during the summer, time on birthday and Mother's Day, at the holidays. I think it's Richards Brown. I don't remember the name.
And so, and during all this time, was there litigation going on between the two?
Yes, multiple times.
So I'm gonna take you to about October of 2020.
Yes.
Did John Mello leave the country with your niece?
Yes, he emailed my sister and said we won't be here for the next visit weekend. Can't make it to the next visit weekend, something to that effect, and missed the court-ordered scheduled visitation. Didn't know where or why necessarily until shortly after when we discovered they were out of the country.
And so in October of 2020, where was Christina living? That same duplex?
So no, in again, March going to April of 2020, I'm sheltering in place with my now ex-husband. So super great. I decided I didn't want to do that, and I'm getting an apartment for myself. And my sister had just said, I want us to be closer. And her lease on that duplex was coming due in that spring of 2020. And I told her, I'm getting an apartment. I can get a 3-bedroom apartment. I clearly am a army of one and don't need a 3-bedroom. But if I got a 3-bedroom, then you could have your visit weekends with me, and we can spend time together. We have a playground, have a pool, et cetera, et cetera. So summer going into fall of 2020, my sister had her visit weekends with my niece in my apartment. And then she, again, was living for the most part with post non-visit weekends or non-visit weeks.
And was Christina Parcell working during this time?
Yes, she was a vet tech.
Was she a full-time vet tech or?
No, at that time she was part-time.
So in 2020, y'all discover that your niece has left the country with John Mello.
Yes.
Did this sort of set off a new set of litigation as far as the custody dispute is concerned?
Yes, she filed a rule to show cause in family court under the then agreement that she had, because they had reached an agreement. He was in violation of that agreement. Rule to show cause was, the family court equivalent of you broke the agreement. Once we determined where he was, and she had already spoken to family court, her lawyer, Greenville County, tried to reach out to SLED, tried to reach out to the FBI. Once we discovered where they were, started investigating, how do you get someone back from a foreign country?
And was she dedicated to trying to get her daughter back?
Every day.
So what did she do?
Once we've finally figured out that there is a Hague Convention for child abduction, not just war crimes, but truly for child abduction, reached out to the State Department. Her first contact was Zach, and then the second contact was a woman named April Conway. And essentially, you go through this entire application of the circumstances. You have to provide the court orders, the existing orders that funnels up through the State Department to, they call it the central authority. So the U.S. central authority then reaches over to their counterpart in whatever the country is, because this happens for all of these countries that are a part of the convention. And then it goes down their chain. In this case, it was Italy.
And when did she start that process?
Oh, we found out where they were late October, early November. So probably November, possibly December of 2020.
And again, how did you find out that your niece was in Italy?
Her father posted a photo on Facebook of her standing in, I think, like a cobblestone plaza type situation. It was nighttime. There was a banner on the wall behind her that said the name Rovigo, Italy. And once we began searching down that rabbit hole, we found an online news article.
And were you having any contact with your niece at that time?
First time my sister got to speak with my niece was Christmas Day of 2020, so it had been 2.5 months.
All right, so you mentioned this Hague Convention. Did Christina continue to pursue that and, in fact, have some hearings in Italy regarding the ultimate custody of your niece?
Yeah, so when you go through this process with the Hague, I am not an expert, but this is one of those things that kind of sticks with you. Since it goes through the central authority, essentially that other country, their government is acting on your behalf. So the equivalent of Walt in Italy was representing my sister. It's not that she had to hire an attorney. The state or the nation of Italy was doing it, because this is all international agreements and arrangements. All communication was done to her through the State Department. So they channel up, it goes over, it comes down and back and forth. The State Department let her know that a hearing had been scheduled for February of 2021, and that she could attend either virtually or in person. And she called me to let me know I was at work. She called me and I asked her if she wanted to go, and she said yes. And I asked her if she wanted me to go with her, and she said yes. So I bought 2 round-trip tickets that day.
And did y'all ultimately go to Italy for a hearing?
We flew out of Atlanta on Wednesday, March 10th. We arrived in Venice, Italy at the Marco Polo Airport. The things to stick with you. We arrived around noon that Thursday. Court was the morning of Friday. We flew back to the States that Sunday.
And were you successful in getting your niece back?
We were nothing at getting my niece back. There was no decision reached in that trip in March. They said they would deliberate and they would reach out with more information.
Now, when you were there, did you get to see your niece?
Did I lay eyes on her? Yes.
Did you speak with her?
And again, this is just based on what happened, not I know the rules of Italy. But when we were there, they said the mother has to go in, the father has to go in, and the minor child cannot go in. He brought her to court, and she was not allowed to go in the courtroom, and she had to stay outside of the courtroom. I couldn't go in because I wasn't a party. She was now an unattended minor in a foreign country, which is, again, not great. And they asked if I would watch her. His attorneys asked that I not speak with her. That wasn't a court order. It was just, hey, can you sit here and watch her and not say anything?
And was John Miller there as well?
Yes, he's the one that brought my niece into court for that hearing.
So did y'all ever return back to Italy again?
My sister returned to Italy. So this was in March of 2021. She, again, received notice from the State Department it felt like forever, of course, but a few weeks later, either end of March, beginning of April, there's another hearing. Again, you can attend virtually or in person. She said, I want to go in person. I asked if she wanted me to go again, and she said, no, I'll go by myself.
So did she fly to Italy?
She did fly to Italy, give or take tax day.
And was she successful in getting the return of your niece?
At first, there was no decision reached, and they said she can leave and come back when we decide. She opted to stay, and a few days later, I can check my records for actual dates. A few days later, they let her know that they had decided to repatriate. Italy repatriated my niece to my sister. John Mello and my niece were brought to a police station. Anita was given to my sister. My sister then had to wait a week to get a replacement passport for my niece because hers had expired when they were in Italy.
While Christina was over there, did she have to hire bodyguards?
We had 2 bodyguards when we were there. We weren't allowed to, because again, COVID, we weren't allowed to take public transportation. We weren't allowed to sit down in restaurants. So we did have 2 people that were hired to both provide some protection for that day in court, but also to get us from point A to point B while we were in court. And she had the same staff were hired when she went back.
So what day did Christina and your niece return?
April 22nd of 2021.
So when they returned, to what residence did they initially go?
They started living with me full time in the apartment that we discussed. The lease on that apartment was up in the middle of May, so I'd already started making arrangements to live somewhere rather than renew the lease on the apartment.
And so did you eventually secure another location?
I had made an offer to buy the Canebrake home December 17th of 2020. I'd already been trying to buy that house for 4 months.
And did y'all eventually move into 122 Canebrake?
We moved into 122 Canebrake on May 14th of 2021.
So when once y'all moved in, you and who all lived there?
I was in the master bedroom, a nice tan with wood trim and a big window. My sister was across the hall in a not great yellow bedroom. My niece was down the hall from her in what came as a hot pink bedroom. And she was thrilled about that. So it was the 3 of us. I had chosen this home. It was large enough. There was an ensuite. You saw it in the walkthrough. The salmon colored in the back had its own full bathroom, and that was going to be where my parents could live if they needed to in the future. So it was the 3 of us.
So you talked about this custody dispute, let's call it before John Mello and your niece went to Italy,
Yes.
and now we're past that. During this time frame up until May of 2020, how would you describe the dispute, this custody dispute between Christina and John?
It was active until the moment she died. There were still hearings while he was in Italy. He did not return to the United States for the, I guess it was 5 months, 3 weeks that they were here, almost 6 months. He would attempt to retain counsel or did retain counsel, though it attend a hearing on his behalf. There was a hearing with regards to when could phone calls happen.
Did y'all ever fear for your safety or anybody or your niece's safety or your safety?
We wouldn't let her play outside by herself. It is a beautiful neighborhood, an exceedingly safe neighborhood. I mean, kids everywhere. So it's not that the neighborhood wasn't safe. We just didn't want her to be playing by herself. We didn't want her to get taken. The front window, part of why we always left it open was so we could see the front yard if she was out there.
Did John Mello ever do anything that made y'all feel unsafe?
Can you be more specific with your question with regards to place and time?
Around that time.
Around that time, I can't say if it was John Mello or not. I know that my employer received an anonymous packet full of John Mello and my sister's family court documents, and I know my sister didn't send it.
About the end of June and July, do you remember Christina and Brad Post receiving some envelopes?
Yes, I didn't. Many envelopes. It was kind of a flurry of activity as to had all of them arrived in our neighborhood, his neighborhood, the guardian, her attorney, her employer. It was.
Were you aware of the contents of those photos?
Yes.
I mean, of those envelopes?
Yes.
What were the contents of those envelopes?
If it were something that existed in South Carolina, I would call it revenge porn, but apparently that's not illegal here.
So there were
naked pictures of my sister.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 1 for identification purposes only. And I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 1A and 1B. I'm going to ask you if you recognize these photos. And I'm sorry to have to show you these to you.
Yes, that is my sister, Christina.
And then I'm going to show you what's marked as States Exhibit 6, envelope States Exhibit 6, and ask you if you recognize photos 6A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Because of the COVID lockdowns, she works. She's like in finance, Nancy,
This is all my sister.
like an investment firm or something. I think she's probably financially pretty comfortable.
June and July of 2021.
Yes.
Now, did your sister go to the police?
Yeah, she went to the police. She went to a postal inspector.
In regards to the photos, how do you know that's your sister?
I'm going to try not to be. I recognize her, having known her her entire life. I recognize her haircut. I recognize her tattoos.
And can you give this jury a time frame of when those photos were taken?
Based on the length of her hair and again the state of her tattoos, I would say somewhere between.
Yes,
10 and
crafting,
20.
Jacqueline.
And was that the time in which she was dating John Mello?
That's correct.
Now, so how old would Christina Parcell be?
She was born in 1980, so 2010 she would have been 30. 2011, 31.
30, 31.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to take you to, well, when did y'all move in? When did you move into the Canebrake house?
May 14th of 2021.
So from then until October 13th, 2021, what was life like?
Well, it was still COVID, but it was less COVID-y than it had been. So my niece joined the swim team and played her first team sport. She had friends in the neighborhood. She miraculously was promoted from 3rd to 4th grade, even though she missed 6 months of that school year. I worked downtown. My mother would come and babysit if Christina and I both had to work, or maybe our schedules overlapped. And I know that this sounds odd, but I would text my sister, I'm coming home. Can you chop the onions? I'm making this for dinner, or I'm going to the grocery. I mean, it was a really standard. We're living together, and we have a kid, and school, and etc.
So I'm going to take you to October 13th, 2021.
It's really tragic, isn't it?
I worked at a company called Norris Financial Group in downtown Greenville.
And we've seen video of your car leaving. Do you remember about what time you left to go to work?
That's not my car. That was a rental, but I left give or take 8:30 that morning.
Her rental was a Lexus.
And when did you realize that this incident happened?
I had a voicemail. My phone hadn't rang, but I had a voicemail. It's a thing that happens sometimes. And it was from Brad Post saying there's an emergency at home. Emergency at the house. You need to come home. And so I grabbed my purse, walked into the hall, told my boss, there's an emergency at the house. I'm going to go home. And made my way to the car.
And before you left for work, what was going on inside the household as far as Christina and your niece?
Do you mean
About what time did they
Do you mean
wake up?
that morning? Okay. I slept a little later than normal. Who knows why? And Christina had a job interview, so she was not necessarily up earlier than normal, but trying to.
See, this is so weird to me, okay? Where did the damn roses come from? Because the guy on the bicycle, supposedly Zachary Hughes, he doesn't have roses or wildflowers with him. they're all just, she and her sister Christina, they're getting up in the morning, taking the little girl to school. They're going off to their respective jobs, job interviews. Why would somebody have roses at 8 a.m.? Unless it was Bradley Post trying to beg her to let him come back and get back together again. And so where'd the roses come from? That's one of my big questions.
To get the day started and out the door earlier than normal. So she
Hey,
took me
Vicky.
to school while I was drinking my morning coffee in that middle sitting room where we called it the den. That's where we spent our time. Christina came back. She had forgotten the school communication folder that you're supposed to bring back every week. She'd forgotten that. So she came back to the house to get the school communication folder and stood in the doorway and said she had a hair appointment that afternoon and it was gymnastics that afternoon. And what are we going to cook for dinner? And then she said, I love you, bye. And she walked out the door.
And when did you first hear about this incident?
The voicemail from Post said there was an emergency. And as I was going back to my car, he called again. And I again went straight to voicemail. So I called him back and he said, it's her. I think she's dead. And so I got there as fast as I could.
So did you ride back at the house?
Give or take 11:30 that morning, yes.
Now, in regards to your house, what door do y'all namely use to enter and exit the house? And which doors do you have keys to? Explain this jury your front and side door.
Yeah. So I'd been trying, I made an offer December of 2020, less than a year into COVID. And what neither I nor my realtor knew, this house was under foreclosure. We didn't know that. And because of COVID,
Zachary Hughes, Carol.
So it was in foreclosure. But
The
then
rose
it
petal
was done in
murder.
foreclosure. And kept trying to complete the sale and couldn't get the final number that you had to have, the close number, the actual dollars you had to have. So by the time the lease was coming up on the apartment, I have to have a place to live. I want to buy this house. And so we had what's called an occupancy prior to purchase agreement, where you're essentially renting the house from the people that own it. So we had this, so I could move in before I owned the house, but it's still a rental. So we had keys for the front door only. We didn't have a key for the back door. And since I didn't own the home, I couldn't change locks. It was a rental. So when we came and went day in, day out, we would go through that front door. That first month.
But Bradley Post said they always go through the back door.
Go play in the yard, try and come back in the back door.
So he lied to the police.
We had no key for the back door. And like I crawled into the garage one time to get in the house. So when we were home,
When you say back door, is that the door down the side of the driveway?
Yes, I would go into the sunroom, which was my office. And so when we were home, we would leave that door open, but really tried to be diligent to lock it up at night when leaving, etc.
So you would lock both doors when y'all were going to sleep at night.
Yes, and it's just part of that nighttime routine. You go, you check the doors, you turn off the lights, slide the deadbolt on the front door because it had a little slidey lock, and then go on down the hallway.
So if you were going to get out of your car in your driveway and you were coming home from work, which door would you typically use?
Always the front door, not typically, always.
Always the front door.
Yes.
So it would be normal.
So Bradley
if
Post lied to the
Christina
police.
Parcell arrived home from a job interview. Which door would you imagine she would enter into?
She could only enter the front door.
He said to the cops, the back door is always unlocked. We always go through the back door. So it's direct contradiction. It's amazing to me that this guy Post wasn't arrested for this murder. It's amazing.
What about the curtains in the front of the front room?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, they were kept open.
And what was that front room's meant for?
So it's a standard ranch house where you have that front long, skinny, formal living room that nobody uses unless you're the kind of person that has furniture with plastic on it, and that's not my life. So yeah, I see that. You know what I'm talking about. But that front window got a lot of light. So, and you saw in some of the photos, my sister kept her plants there. We had my 2 silver chairs. The neighborhood kids and my niece would do puzzles in that room, arts and crafts. My sister had a desk where she did her schoolwork. that was in front of the smaller window, but it wasn't the TV room or the family congregation eat dinner room. We did that in the den on the other side of that wall.
And so when you left that morning for work, were those blinds open or were they closed?
We always left because it was always open. Blinds and curtains were always open to get lights in for the plants. We didn't keep a light on in that room, so we weren't concerned, say at nighttime, we weren't concerned people were going to see us through that window because we didn't do anything in that room at nighttime that people would see. We were on the other wall, so it was just always open.
So when on this incident, did you talk with law enforcement about that day? Did they interview you? Did you talk to them?
Yes, I sat in Investigator Sparkman's vehicle, and he said, "Tell me the history of your sister." And I said, "How far back do you want me to go?"
Did you kind of tell them what you told us here today?
And then
More or
some.
less.
Yes,
Did you tell him anybody you thought might have done this?
I said I absolutely believe John Mello did it.
Did you know where John Mello was located?
I knew he was supposedly in Italy, but who knows?
And Ms. Parcell, have you ever met Zach Hughes?
No.
Have you ever spoken to him?
I've spoken at him, but no, never with him.
That's
Prior
so
to
crazy.
2018,
It's so
2021,
crazy.
Have you ever spoken to him?
No,
Ever seen him before?
No.
Noticed him?
No.
Have you ever seen Christina Parcell talk to him?
No.
He's never been to the house?
Whoa.
no. I'm not while I was there. I wasn't there 24/7, but no.
Did you know her to ever have any communications with him?
I found this week when I was reviewing all of the legal files, an email John Mello sent to my sister where he CC'd.
They said, don't talk about the email. This is so crazy to me. Why wasn't Bradley Post arrested for this?
Parcell to have any interaction with
No,
Zach
absolutely
Hughes?
no interaction, no.
Ms. Parcell, you've heard testimony here today, yesterday, that there was cocaine, small bag of cocaine found in that front sitting room. Do you ever use cocaine?
No,
Did y'all keep cocaine in the house?
no.
Did you know Christina to use cocaine?
I've never seen her do cocaine.
And we've discussed this child custody dispute. Was there a guardian appointed to your niece?
Yes, so once my niece was taken and my sister filed a rule to show cause, which essentially opens up the prior action that had been settled, the court appointed a guardian ad litem to act in the best interest of my niece.
And would the guardian keep in contact with Christina Parcell?
The guardian was in very frequent contact with Christina. The guardian did home visits of my apartment, number one, because that's where I would have been returned to. She also did a home visit of Canebrake. I'd have to check paperwork to see if Christina took drug tests during that time. There were many over the years. So,
You know that she was asked to take drug tests.
oh, many times over the years.
Did you ever know Christina to use cocaine?
No.
All right, Ms. Parcell, if you'll just answer any questions. Ms. Counsel have. Cross-examination.
Good morning, Mr. Sarah. My name is Mark Moyer. I have some questions for you today. Okay. So just want to start off with a little bit about your background with Ms. Parcell. You said Christina was about 2 years younger than you, is that right?
2 years, 4 days.
2 years, 4 days. And you all began living together, the first time was at the Woods Road apartment, is that right?
I had room in my apartment designated for her to have visitation with my niece. Yes.
Okay, so y'all were living together at the
As I testified to earlier, she had visitations with my niece under my roof at that apartment, but my sister herself typically lived with Post during those times.
okay. And it
No.
wasn't until you all moved into the Canebrake house that you all were living together.
No, as I testified earlier, when my sister and my niece returned from Italy, April 22nd of 2021, my niece and my sister lived with me full time. The first few weeks I was still at the apartment, but we moved into Canebrake May 14th of 2021.
Okay. I want to ask you a little bit about the custody disputes that were going on. You said you did not stay very much involved in the actual disputes at the beginning of that. Isn't that right?
No, that is not actually the character of my testimony. What I said was that my sister and I were becoming closer and essentially trying to get closer after she had cut contact with me for 4 years. So that's not something you get over quickly
Sure.
or immediately.
I understand, but that kept you from staying very much in tune with exactly what's going on at that time, right?
Well, that and John Mello threatening to have me charged with kidnapping, that also had a factor in it.
Okay. And you gave up, Christina gave up custody of Aida to John Mello, didn't you?
No, I don't believe that's actually accurate, and I would like to make sure it's accurate. As I testified earlier, she and Mr. Mello had a quote-unquote gentleman's agreement, and then when my sister was not receiving the visitation she thought she was due, that's when the actual court actions began, which is not in any way, shape, or form the same as giving up custody, I believe.
Okay, but John Mello had primary custody.
I believe that the agreement was written that he had custody and she had visitation, correct?
Okay. So that was in the court documents, that he had custody, and she didn't dispute that. She didn't fight that, did she?
She had fought that repeatedly, trying to get custody, and then would reach an agreement with him.
But not initially. When that first document came out, where John got custody, when John Mello got custody, she did not,
Mr. Mello had physical custody before there was a document in that original Pickens County family court action. Mr. Mello had physical custody and was not allowing my sister to have visitation, so she took him to court and then reached an agreement where he retained custody, but he was not granted custody by the court.
okay, but she reached an agreement, so they didn't have to fight it out in the courts because she allowed him to have custody, correct?
That is the agreement which she reached. That's not the same as allowing, but
So she agreed to it. That's what an agreement is, right? Correct?
she entered that agreement, yes.
Okay, thank you. And it was not until Ida was taken to Italy by John that she began trying to get full custody. Is that correct?
No, they had multiple family court cases. Sometimes she initiated, sometimes he initiated, trying to modify the agreement that they had.
And it wasn't modified until after she came back, Ida came back from Italy, right?
Honestly, I would have to check the paperwork.
Okay. Now, you had met Brad Post before he started dating Christina in 2015 or 2016, correct?
He was a customer at my father's cigar store.
And that was somewhere around 2000 or 2001 when you met him?
I couldn't tell you. He was a person that sat in my father's cigar store, so I couldn't tell you the first time I noticed him as a human being, no.
Okay, you worked for him for a period of time?
No, I did not.
You don't remember?
My
no?
sister worked for him, I did not.
Your sister did, but you never worked for him?
My father?
No, did you never work for Brad Post?
So I worked for the company. It was originally called eBridge Technologies. That was owned by Brad Cunningham. It was a software company. That is where I worked. And then Mr. Cunningham is the one who began purchasing NC&E, Network Controls and Electric. So no, I did not work for Brad Post. I worked for Brad Cunningham, who purchased NC&E from Brad Post.
Okay, so if Brad Post said that you worked for him, that'd be incorrect?
Never heard him say I worked for him, so I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, I'm saying if you did, you told this department that you worked for him for a period of time, that would not be true?
No, I worked for eBridge Technologies, which again, I don't want to say subsidiary because I didn't do any of the paperwork, but eBridge Technologies, that software company, kind of merged with Network Controls and Electric once Brad Cunningham became the person that was buying NC&E.
Okay. Christina was working part-time at as a vet tech, correct?
Correct.
When she died. And Bradley Post was helping her out financially, was he not?
I couldn't give you any type of dollar amounts, but I assume so.
Bradley Post is a millionaire.
No,
Okay, but you all had conversations about when you were having trouble getting the house. Did you not have conversations with Christina about getting Brad Post involved to help with that?
no, I unequivocally did not want Brad Post involved.
So you never talked to Christina about, you never sent her an email or said, this house is more expensive than I thought, so maybe Brad Post could buy it and then we could rent it from him?
No. So I found out October 9th, 2021, that the people I was trying to buy the home for, again, it was in foreclosure. Foreclosures went for forbearance because of COVID, and the dollar amount, the cost to close kept going up, going up, going up. My realtor called me that Saturday and said, it's got to be this much. It was approximately 10 to 15% more than I was approved for. And I told her, I can't do that, but give me a couple days. I'm going to figure something out. And so my sister and I began texting new houses to try and buy a different house, which meant I was looking for a new house at the time my sister was murdered, which means I was not trying to have Brad Post buy Cambridge so I could rent it from him.
Okay. Now, when John Mello took his daughter and Christina's daughter to Italy, he had primary custody at that time.
That was the agreement, and also he was to allow visitation as per the agreement he reached in family court, yes.
And he was a dual citizen of
this
know
country.
he
and
claims to be a
Italy.
dual
Let me finish the
citizen.
question, sorry. He's a dual citizen of this country and Italy, isn't that true?
I know he claims to be a dual citizen. I cannot ascertain the truth of that statement.
And you know, your niece became an Italian citizen while she was in Italy.
I know he claims she became an Italian citizen. I cannot ascertain the truth of that statement.
Okay. And you talked about having a bodyguard or someone to drive you around while you were in Italy and then back here. Brad Post was paying for that, wasn't he?
I don't know who paid. I didn't see an invoice.
So when Christina went to Italy in mid-April for the final hearing, she went alone that time. You testified, correct?
I didn't go with her. That's correct. I understand she went alone.
And she returned to this country with Ida, right?
She returned with my niece April 22nd when they landed in Greenville.
And you met her at the airport?
Yes, I did.
The guardian ad litem was there?
Yes, she was.
Brad Post was there?
Yes, he was.
Who else was there?
Representative from Lindsey Graham's office was there. Friends of the family were there. My parents, people, my sister's neighbor from the duplex where she used to live, and her children were there.
And Brad Post was there?
As I said earlier, yes, he was there.
And he proposed to her at the airport, didn't he?
That was a choice that he made, yes.
Then there's a
She
welcome party
sounds
later that night.
disapproving.
No, sir. Everybody was at the airport with flowers, with balloons, with signs. My sister and my niece got back into my car. I took them to the apartment. I picked up Indian takeout food, and we ate Indian takeout food at my home that night.
Okay, so the welcome party was what happened at the airport.
Yes.
And
No,
so it's
Brad
clear that Ida
Post.
was out of the home and gone between.
Okay, so Brad Post was the current fiance. They had broken up and gotten back together many times. He is currently in jail for having molested her daughter, this woman's niece. He was also the one who called the police that morning. He's the one that discovered the body of Christina Parcell. Zachary, okay, and then the biologic father of the child is the one that took her over to Italy, John Mello. And then the guy that's actually on trial is Zachary Hughes. And the only thing Zachary Hughes has to do with this is that he's acquaintances or friends with John Mello. But John Mello was in Italy at the time. And it's really weird because to me, all the evidence points at Bradley Post, the fiance. And again, where did the roses come from? Why would rando Zachary Hughes be bringing roses? I could see where the fiance would bring roses. Maybe they broke up. Maybe they had a fight. Maybe he was coming back with his hat in his hand and the dozen roses begging for forgiveness. So it is crazy to me that this uninvolved guy is on trial and Brad Post is not charged with her murder. It's crazy.
October the 5th of 2020 and then mid-April of 2021, right?
My understanding is October 4th, but again, since I was not there when they left the flight, I would have to check documents.
Okay, now you all moved into the Cambridge house on May the 14th of 2021, right?
That's correct. That's when the movers came on Friday the 14th.
I agree, Jacqueline.
You testified today something that contradicts what you told Investigator Sparkman in your interview about where everyone stayed in the house.
I was in the tin room, the master room, in the back of the bay window, right over the nook. My sister was across the hall in the yellow bedroom. My niece's bedroom was the hot pink bedroom just down the hall.
Okay, you told Investigator Sparkman that room had been turned into a playroom and that your niece
No, the
stayed.
purple bedroom was going to be the designated playroom.
So do you remember telling Investigator Sparkman that your niece slept in the bed in the same room with Christina?
No, I'm not saying she didn't. I'm saying there were times that she would sleep there. She would sleep on the couch. She might sleep in her bed. And my understanding is she co-slept with her father as well.
And you told Investigator Sparkman, though, that she didn't have a room, that the room that was supposed to be for her would turn into a playroom and that she stayed with Christina.
I don't believe I said that she didn't have a room. It clearly had her toys in it, had her clothes in it, had her bed in it. Now, again, I had just discovered that my sister was dead in my house and I was homeless, so it's entirely possible I misspoke, and for that, I apologize.
That was several days later. It wasn't the same day.
And again, I'm sorry if I misspoke.
Okay. Now, Brad Post would come by the house every day, would he not?
I can't say it was every day, depending on the mercurial relationship. Sometimes they were in a better spot. So there would be times where he wouldn't come over at all. There would be times where he would come over and have dinner.
But while they were dating and not broken up, as you told investigator Sparkman, Brad Post would come over every day. Isn't that true?
Bless you. Again, not a matter of broken up. If they were in a good patch or a bad patch, as anybody is having a good patch or a bad patch, there would be times he'd be there every day, yes, for dinner or what have you. There would be times where he wasn't.
Now, you mentioned Ida wasn't allowed to play outside
You know, I said we wouldn't let her play outside by herself.
by herself. So, and you mentioned that she had friends in the neighborhood. So would friends come over and play inside with her in the
Well, no,
house?
she would play outside with friends. We
Okay.
would do our best to, again, keep an eye out on her, on the friends, as any adult would do to make sure the children are going to be safe, especially with the creek nearby. So she would play in the house, outside the house.
Okay. And her friends would play outside with her and play inside with her?
Yes.
Now, I have to ask you just a few questions about the packages that you received, that you were asked about by the solicitor. You mentioned the pictures that were in the packages, but in addition to the pictures, there were some website postings that were included, were there not?
I wasn't shown any by the solicitor.
Do you remember when you looked at the packages, though, do you remember seeing the website from the escort service?
I saw that there was something textual. I didn't lend credence to it.
And again, I hate to have to ask you about this, but were you aware of that part of your sister's past?
I was aware the allegations had been made in family court, just like there had been allegations made I was going to try and kidnap my niece. So I didn't lend credence to them.
Are you aware that she gave a deposition in which she did give credence to those allegations?
Objection, Your Honor. Sustained.
So after the death of your sister, Christina, where was Ida?
I'm sorry, could you clarify the question?
After your sister died, where was your niece?
I would also ask you to rephrase that question to be accurate.
Okay, who did your niece live with?
So after my sister was murdered, what is the question for that?
Where did your niece live?
The guardian ad litem, after my sister was murdered, got an ex parte emergency placement with me. My niece and I stayed with friends, and that's where we went.
All right, and then what happened with Aida on October the 19th of 2021?
She was put into foster care.
Okay, and what time of day was it?
It was at night.
Okay, and police came and got her?
Yes,
About what time at night?
it was approximately 10:30 at night.
Okay. How long were the police at the house?
I don't know, maybe an hour less.
And she was taken into emergency protective custody at that time?
Yes.
And who got custody of Aida?
Would you clarify the question, please?
Where does Aida live now?
Oh, I've reached an agreement with Mr. Mello right now.
Okay, so you gave up custody to allow,
I never had custody, but
you dropped your petition to try to get custody.
I did not drop a petition. I reached an agreement with Mr. Mello,
Okay,
and he
you,
has custody.
okay, you never had custody of Aida.
I had ex parte custody briefly.
Okay, and then after Aida was taken out of the home, shortly thereafter, she went to live with John Mello, and she still lives with John Mello. Right?
She was not with John Mello for the first almost year and a half after her mother's death, almost 2 years. She was in foster care and then she was in third-party placement. He did not receive custody of her until August of 2023.
Okay, and she remains with him.
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
And John Mello was exonerated of the charges of taking Aida to Italy, is that right?
I believe what you're looking for is a directed verdict of not guilty, not actually exonerated by a jury, yes.
So a judge threw it out, basically.
A judge said South Carolina state laws as a non-custodial parent has no rights to their child. Yes, that is correct.
So a judge threw it out. One moment, please.
We have right now. Thank you. Just briefly, Your Honor.
After the murder of your sister, where did your niece go?
Are you talking short-term or long-term? Again, she was ex parte emergency placed in my care. She was removed from my care and put in foster care for 2 months. After that, she was placed with Allison and Lamar Sutherland from December of 2021 until December of 2022, where she was then placed with her half sister, Isabella Mello, John Mello's eldest child. She was there until August of 2023. And then in August of 2023, when I reached an agreement with Mr. Mello, where I had visitation and my niece was returned to his custody.
And have you seen your niece?
I've not seen my niece since August of 2024.
And do you have rights to see her?
I do.
And have those been complied with?
We currently have active family court action.
So you and John Mello are now in a family court action over the custody or access to your niece.
There is a new action, and the agreement that we reached is currently being appealed in South Carolina State Court of Appeals.
No further questions. Okay. Any recross?
No recross, Your Honor. We would just ask that the witness remain on speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That's your counsel.
Really sad what they did to that little girl. I don't know why they didn't just leave her with the sister. So crazy. Okay, I'm going to skip this witness. We'll go to this one.
But that only applies to people who allow them to track their location data.
He's law
Did
enforcement.
you cover anything of significance from those efforts?
No, sir.
All right. So what else did you start doing involved in this case?
On October 19th and the 20th, I went back out to the Canebrake neighborhood and continued canvassing the area for potential witnesses or additional security footage.
So we heard Master Deputy Stokes talk about canvassing this neighborhood. Were you doing sort of the same thing?
Yes, sir.
Did y'all do it 2 separate times?
Yes, sir.
Why is that?
People were at home. People come and go. Her murder happened earlier in the day. People could have been at work. So we go at, usually more than once at different times just to try to catch people when they're at home.
And in doing so, did you talk with Donna Gorman?
Yes, sir, I did.
About when did you talk to her?
That'd be the afternoon of October 20th.
And at that time, had y'all obtained ring cameras and video footage related to this case?
Yes, sir, we had.
And did you show her a copy of the individual that was on a bike at that time?
No, I did not.
Did anybody else speak with Donna Gorman?
Investigator Riley Stokes.
Do you know when he spoke with her?
The day of Miss Parcell's murder.
About when did you obtain video footage of a suspect leaving on a bicycle?
October 14th, I believe.
So after you continued to canvass the neighborhood, what did you do?
I made contact with Miss Gorman and spoke with her.
And then after that, what did you do?
After that, it was on October 22nd that myself and Investigator Sparkman.
Yeah, some people get really messed up, Sketty Nona. I'm sorry that happened to your family.
It was suggested that we speak with him.
Did you, in fact, try to go and locate Michael Mendenhall?
Yes, sir.
And where did you locate him?
So we were told that he rides the Green Link buses. So we went around to some of their bus stops and we located him getting off a bus on Orange Road.
And did you speak with him?
Yes, sir, we did.
They suggested it was Zachary Hughes, but we don't know yet.
And did you have the occasion to obtain a DNA sample from him?
Yes, sir. He gave consent.
And where did you take that sample?
It was in the CID interview room in the homicide office.
Did y'all carry him down there, or did he meet y'all there?
No, he doesn't have.
They're talking about a witness that we skipped. He's not really integral.
Now, what did you do with those bucket swabs?
I placed them into our property no interim.
May we approach? Sure.
Yes, sir.
So, Master Deputy Wolf, in trying to locate Zachary David Hughes, what did you do?
So I began by just doing a basic Google search of something along the lines of Zachary Hughes, Greenville, South Carolina. The first thing I noticed is there were several articles online about him being a pianist, being famous for being able to play music by memory.
And then once you had that information, what did you do?
So then I logged into my South Carolina DMV online account and I obtained a picture of Mr. Hughes's driver's license, his DMV photo. I showed that photo to Mr. Manigault just to confirm that I was looking at the same Zachary Hughes that he was referring to.
Was it confirmed?
Yes, sir.
So once you've confirmed the person that you're looking into, what did you do next?
Well, I continued to look at his DMV online account. And one thing that I found was important is the address on his driver's license was 200 Tyndall Avenue. 200 Tyndall Avenue is located within the city limits of Greenville. A few months prior to Ms. Parcell's murder, the Greenville Police Department had installed traffic cameras around the city. So since he lived in the city, I believed if he had a vehicle, there would be some photos on these traffic cameras of his vehicle. So also using my South Carolina DMV online account, I found that he had a gold 1999 Ford Ranger registered to his name. So the city uses a traffic camera system. Some people call them license plate readers, LPRs for short, called flock. When you pass a flock camera, it takes a picture of your license plate in the back right side of your vehicle, and then it goes into a database that's searchable. So once I had Mr. Hughes's license plate from the DMV, I entered it into the flock system. At that time, flock had a retention period of 90 days, and I found 55 images of Mr. Hughes's vehicle.
Now explain this, so how many flock cameras are there around Greenville County?
At that time, they were just in the city. I would say maybe 10 to 15.
Okay, so we only had 10 to 15 cameras in the city limits.
Yes, the county had not yet employed any flock cameras.
And now you say you have access to this flock camera system. Is this a nationwide system or a local system?
Yes, so Flock is a national company. They sell these traffic cameras to law enforcement agencies across the country.
All right, so after you searched a car registered to Zach Hughes, what'd you find?
So I found the 55 images of his vehicle during that 90-day retention period. I found 2 images the day of Ms. Parcell's murder.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 114 and 115. I'm asking if you recognize those.
Yes, sir. These are the flock pictures of Mr. Hughes' vehicle on October 13th, 21.
Your Honor, State moves Exhibits 114 and 115 into evidence.
No objection.
114 and 115.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm showing you States Exhibit 114. Can you tell the jury what's in this photo and the time and date?
Yes, sir. This is a photo of Mr. Hughes's 1999 Ford Ranger. It was captured at 2:31 p.m. on October 13th at the Buncombe and Rutherford intersection. And then you can see a black bicycle in the bed of his truck.
It looks blue to me.
Was it 2:31 in the afternoon?
Yes, sir.
Looks like a blue bicycle, buddy.
Why was this significant?
Because we have the video of a suspect leaving the crime scene on a black bike.
But that looks like a blue bike. Does that look like a blue bike to y'all?
102. Was this what you were trying to compare it to?
Yes, sir.
And what was your conclusions?
My conclusion is that there's a lot of similarities between the bike and the photo you were holding up and the.
Okay, hang on, buddy. Hold on a damn minute, Mr. Something Something, Mr. Little McCotty. Hold on a second. Let's take a little gander at this. Ah, where'd it go? There it is. Yeah, it is black, isn't it? I was looking at this part here. It looks blue, but that definitely looks black. All right, Mr. McCotty, proceed as you were.
Of a suspect leaving the crime scene on a black bike.
I'm going to show you what's States Exhibit 102. Was this what you were trying to compare it to?
Exactly,
Yes, sir.
Nancy. I would agree with you.
Conclusions?
My conclusion is that there's a lot of similarities between the bike and the photo you were holding up and the bike in the bed of Mr. Hughes' truck.
And I'm going to show you States Exhibit 115. What is that?
That is another flock camera of Mr. Hughes' vehicle at night. Lawrence in East Washington, 7:30 on the same day.
But you can't really see anything.
No, sir.
So as a result of that, what did you do?
So after learning this information, I acquired search warrants for 200 Tyndall Avenue, Mr. Hughes's truck, his DNA, and his cell phone.
Now, did you, after talking to Mr. Manigault, your independent research, did you learn where John Mello lived or had a house at the time?
Yes, sir.
And where is that?
So he has a house here in Greenville in 12 Blake Street.
And did you also look into the location of Mr. Mello at this particular time?
Yes, sir.
And were you able to confirm where he was?
Yes. We obviously had to consider him as a potential suspect. We were told at the beginning he was potentially in Italy, so we had to confirm that.
Were you able to confirm that?
Yes, sir.
So you went and got a search warrant for 200.
I think it
Yes,
looks
sir.
blue too, Jacqueline. There's some black on it.
Go out to 200 Tyndall?
Yes, sir, we did.
And did you execute a search warrant on that house?
Yes, sir, we did.
All right. Tell the jury how that occurred.
So we started by meeting at a predetermined location a few miles from the address. And we had a deputy in a unmarked vehicle drive by the house to make sure Mr. Hughes was going to be there. Mr. Hughes was actually leaving the driveway at that time. So we waited at our predetermined location until he returned. Once he returned, we went to the house to execute the search warrant.
And did you learn who, now, did the defendant own this house?
No, sir.
Did you discover or learn who the owners of this house were?
Yes, sir.
And who was that?
Jeanette and Marshall Lynn.
So how many individuals arrived on which day was this?
This would have been October 22nd.
So October 22nd.
Yes, sir.
So about 9 days after the murder.
Yes, sir.
So tell us what happened when y'all arrived.
So when we arrived, we sent deputies to the front of the house and then to the back of the
Yeah,
house.
maybe, Jacqueline.
Their
It does look
driveway
like it was
is,
painted.
located
Yeah.
in the house. You have to go down a side street to get to it. And I was one of the deputies that went to the back of the house. I parked directly behind Mr. Hughes's Ford Ranger. When we exited our vehicles, he was standing inside the house right in front of a double French door. When I first observed him, he already had his hands up. So,
And did he have a cell phone?
yes, sir, he did.
Where was the cell phone?
It was in his hand.
He's a concert
Did you approach him,
pianist.
or
He's
you
not a
No,
hardened
we called him
criminal.
with us. Yes, sir.
And what did he do when you called him out?
He complied.
And what did he do with the cell phone?
He put it down on the table he was standing beside, just almost directly inside the French doors.
Did you secure that cell phone?
Yes, sir.
How'd you do that?
It was collected by another deputy and then transported to be downloaded.
And where did they take that cell phone from?
The kitchen table. Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 112. So you recognize this?
Yes, sir. This is the cell phone that we collected that belonged to Mr. Hughes.
Your Honor, State moves Exhibit 112 in evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
X, one, two, come there.
So I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 116, 117, and 118. Ask if you recognize this.
Yes, sir. These are photos of 200 Tyndall Avenue.
Your Honor, State moves 116, 117, 118 in evidence.
No objection.
116, 117, and 118, and then States.
So I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 117. What is that?
That is the front door if you're on Tyndall Avenue and you're facing the front of their house.
And was that where Zach Hughes was standing?
No, sir.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 116. What about that?
That is the back side of the residence that leads to the area where we were parked.
And where was Mr. Hughes standing when you?
You can kind of see the French doors through the bushes there, but he was standing there. Yes, sir.
right, so did y'all effectuate the search warrant?
Yes, sir.
And did you, so what, at this point, what is important to your investigation?
So at this point,
Hi,
we knew Ms.
Justice
Parcell,
Jane. Welcome.
was killed with a sharp force object. So we're looking for any type of knife, screwdriver, anything of those means, clothing, book bag, a bicycle, things like that.
And did y'all search the house looking for those items?
Yes, sir, we did.
What about who was there, who was living there during the time of the murder?
Mr. Hughes was living at the residence. I assume the Winds.
Were they there on October 13th?
No.
How do you know that?
When we were able to access Mr. Hughes' cell phone, he was receiving pictures from the Winds while they were in Europe.
Did you talk to the Winds when y'all were executing the search warrant?
Investigator Sparkman and I did, yes.
Were they compliant?
Yes, sir.
In terms of looking for a bike, did y'all locate one?
Yes, sir, we did.
I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibits 119 through 125. I'm going to ask you to look at State's Exhibits 119 through 125 and ask you if you recognize it.
Yes, sir, I recognize these photos.
I apologize. I'm going to backtrack 2 seconds. Forgot one of my exhibits. But I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit. I need a number. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 132. You recognize this?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
So that is a photo of Mr. Hughes' vehicle with the bike in the bed of the truck on the day of Ms. Parcell's murder. And then that is just a Google image of the Buncombe and Rutherford area where the camera is placed.
State moves 132 in evidence. No objection.
32 comes to evidence.
Now back to 210. Did y'all focus on the garage at some point?
Yes, sir, we did.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 119. Is that the garage?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, are these in evidence? I'm not sure.
Oh.
He was getting ready to.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. All right.
So 119 through 125.
119 to 125.
Defense position.
No objection.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. We like a clean record.
I understand. Thank you. A lot of exhibits, it gets confusing.
Ton.
All right, I'll show you State's Exhibit 119. And you said that's the garage?
Yes, sir.
Did y'all enter inside the garage?
Yes, sir, we did.
All right. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 120. And what'd you find inside?
We found several bicycles inside the garage.
Okay. Were some bikes, well, explain the different bikes that you found inside.
So there's some bikes, as you can see to the upper left of this vehicle that's, mounted on the wall. Several on the ground as well near that vehicle that were just dirty, dusty, look like they've just been sitting in a garage for a long period of time. They're not used regularly. And then to the right of that vehicle, you can see there's a bike sitting upside down on its handlebars and seat. That's a black bike that was very similar to the other two images we had. And it was pristine condition, perfectly clean.
All right, so I'm gonna show you State's Exhibits 121. What are the bikes on the left there, or in this little?
Those are just some of the other bikes, the dirtier bikes that we found in the garage.
Did those bikes look like they had been ridden?
No, sir. Some of them had cobwebs on them.
All right, and I'm gonna show you State's Exhibit 123.
Yes, sir. That is the black bike that I mentioned earlier that was sitting upside down and was just very, very clean.
When you say very clean, what do you mean?
So compared to everything else in this garage, it's just a dirty, dusty garage. Things sit there and collect dust and dirt. And this bike looked like it just rolled off the showroom floor.
It doesn't look like the same bike. Where's the blue? We saw the blue on it. And it didn't have white writing on it. That one's got white writing. Huh. That's weird.
Things sit there and collect dust and dirt. And this bike looked like it just rolled off the showroom floor.
Now, does that bike have blue on it anywhere?
I'll show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 133. You recognize this?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is this?
This is the bike that was seized from the garage at 200 Tyndall.
Statement is 133 in evidence.
Objection, 133. Comes in.
See, there's no blue on that bike.
Did you do any comparison with this bike and the other photos?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I gotta have to go back and look at that.
There's a lot of similarities, such as the frame of the bike, the shape of the handlebars.
Okay, I'm confused. Did you guys see the blue on the bike, or was it just me? Like, I zoomed in to the bicycle that was in the back of the truck. It did have black on it, but there was definite, like, metallic blue. Definitely not the same bike. Thank you, Jacqueline. Isn't that weird? Huh. Weird.
The placement of the brakes.
And you compared it to the photos from the ring cameras?
Yes, sir.
I don't know,
once y'all concluded
Detective
the search
McCarty.
of 200 Tyndall, what did you do next?
The Ford Ranger was taken back to the crime scene unit's office, so I responded there while a forensic technician processed the vehicle.
And then once you concluded that search warrant, were you able to locate another location that may be important in this case?
Yes, sir.
Tell us a story about that.
Through phone location, we located a residence on Indian Flats Trail in Marietta that was also owned by Jeanette Wynn.
And did y'all in fact go up to Indian Flats Trail?
Yes, sir, we did.
All right. And did y'all get a search warrant for that?
Yes, sir.
And when did you get that search warrant?
It was in April of 2023.
Exactly,
Why
Sketty
did you lie?
Nona.
The location data from his cell phone, we did not have his password, so the initial downloads were only partials.
So when you obtained information,
And a little FYI, they're talking about not being able to get into his phone. And it was actually a big deal that was one of the reasons why it took so long for the trial to come to finally get here, because they were fighting with Apple and Google trying to get access to the contents of the phone.
that Zach Hughes might have been at that location, you obtained a search warrant.
Yes, sir.
So where is Indian Flats?
It's in the northern area of Greenville County.
And so how long do you think drive-wise would it take to get there?
About an hour.
All right. So when did you go up there to serve a search warrant?
It was in April of 23, I believe April 14th, but I could be wrong on that date.
And who went with you?
Most of the homicide unit.
That's the homicide unit?
Yes, sir.
And what were you looking for?
So at this point, we still had not recovered a murder weapon or clothing that Mr. Hughes or the suspect was wearing at the time of the murder.
He's a cutie, isn't he?
I have numbers on these.
Hey, Lady of Angels, welcome. Number 27, my lucky number.
All right, Master Deputy Wolf, I'm gonna show you 130, States Exhibits 134 through 139. Ask if you recognize those.
Yes, sir, I do. These are photos of the Windsor residents on Indian Flat Trail.
Next day moves 134 through 139.
No objection.
All right, I'm gonna show you States Exhibit 134. What is that?
That is the front of their residence there. And then on the tree on the right side, you can see a trail or deer camera.
Is that what you're referring to right there?
Yes, sir.
Now, as far as location or seclusion related to this house, how would you, where would you compare this house?
Oh, this is in the middle of the woods on a mountain. You could walk around naked and there's nobody to see you.
So there's no neighbors near you?
No,
Nobody?
nobody.
Now, did y'all walk all around this house? And
Now, did you
Yes.
walk around
Did you walk
naked, Detective Hottie? Did you? Spill the
I'm gonna
beans.
show you States Exhibit 137. What is that?
That's a fire pit or burn pit there on the property.
I guess what you can do there is burn things.
Yes, sir.
And then I'm gonna show you States Exhibit 139.
That is just one of their closets that was full of cleaning materials.
Now, did y'all search the entire house
Yes, sir, we did.
and the surrounding areas?
Yes, sir.
How deep did y'all go into the woods?
Pretty good bit.
Y'all ever locate anything?
No, sir.
What about that trail camera?
That was seized under the search warrant, and then I obtained another search warrant for the SD card contained within it.
So what is a trail camera? Do you know?
Yes, sir. Most people just use them to take pictures of animals. Some people that hunt put them up in the woods to see, what's in that area.
Barry
Most-
Morphew uses them to watch the cops.
Did you seize that trail camera?
Yes, sir.
And did you? What did you do with it after you seized it?
I took it back to our office.
And were you able to look at any photos on the trail camera?
Yes, sir.
How do you do that?
So the camera contained an SD card. I got a separate search warrant to remove the photos or search the SD card. After that, you just plug that SD card into any SD card reader and all the pictures are there.
And were you able to look at any photos on this trail camera?
Yes, sir, I was.
I'm going to show you States Exhibit 140. Ask if you recognize it.
Yes, sir. This is the trail camera we seized from that tree on Indian Flats Trail in Marietta.
State Exhibit 140.
No objection.
No objection. And you were able to locate some photos on that trail camera?
Yes, sir.
All right. What were those photos of?
Zachary Hughes.
I'm going to show you States Exhibits 141 through 145. Ask if you recognize those.
Yes, sir. These are photos of Mr. Hughes that were recovered from that trail camera.
State moves 141 through 145.
No objection.
Objection.
I'm gonna show you State's Exhibit 145. What is that?
That's a photo of Mr. Hughes.
All right, what is the date of that photo?
October 11th,
About what time?
a little after 10 a.m.
Was that 2 days before the murder?
Yes, sir.
Anything significant on here?
Yes, sir. The hoodie or jacket that he was wearing is significant.
Why is that?
So you can see the outside is black. We have the individual on the bicycle riding away on a black hoodie, but you can also tell the top being folded out. The inside is a grayish color. The person who entered her house was wearing a gray jacket.
I'm gonna show you State's Exhibit 105. Is this the photo that you're referring to?
Yes, sir, it is.
And what is this photo?
It's a photo of a person entering her house shortly before she was killed.
And what color is the sweatshirt?
Gray.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 141. What kind of haircut does Mr. Hughes have at that time?
I don't know what you would call it. It's shaved on the side with looks like a long ponytail in the back.
And what
A mullet.
arm, what left or right arm is he carrying something?
Left.
And then State's Exhibits 142. Is that a
Another picture of Mr. Hughes.
Okay. And again, this is on what day?
The same day, October 11th.
And then finally, State's Exhibit 144.
It's a zoomed in picture of Mr. Hughes on the same day.
So that would be what Mr. Hughes looked like on October 11th of 2021.
Yes, sir.
I wish they'd show us the pictures, huh? All we can do is just sit here and think about Detective
Couple more
McConaughey.
questions.
Let's hit
Master
the
Deputy.
thumbs up, please, if you haven't come
Approximately
in.
How far from that mountain house to the Canebrake location would it take to drive?
I believe a little over an hour.
So how many flock photos did you locate of Zach Hughes's car when you did the search?
55.
Right. And of all those photos, how many did you find
The mullet man is back,
his car with a bike in the
Jacqueline.
back?
Just one.
And what date
Avoid
was that?
any man
October
with a
13th of
mullet.
2021.
Thank you. Answer any questions the defense counsel may have.
Business in the front, party in the back. That's all we got. It's 31, Sandy.
He testified that, he testified that one of the reasons why he thought that
It's
the
all
other
right.
bikes in the when garage had not been ridden was you saw cobwebs on them, right?
Yes, sir.
Let me explain why it's okay, Sandy, because there is zero drama. And that is exactly how I like it. I like it nice and calm and boring.
I don't see any cobwebs on this bike. Have you been riding this bike?
No.
Did you ride this bike over from the P&E?
No, sir.
Okay. You talked about cleaning supplies. Do you live in a house or an apartment?
House.
Do you have cleaning supplies in your house?
Yes, sir.
Do you have them in a closet?
In the closet under sinks.
I think Detective McCarty
You talked
looks
about,
rattled.
Based on your investigation, you realized that John Mello was in Italy. Is it true he was in Italy and with Aida from October of 2020 until April of 2021? Isn't that true?
And to the best of my knowledge, yes, sir.
It's the way I like it, Jacqueline. Nice and boring.
You said a word I want to make sure I understand. You said that you could be at the Wind Mountain House and you could be what and nobody could see?
You could walk around there.
Did you? We ladies,
Talked about
Detective McCarty, we ladies would like to know, did you try that out? Did you get naked and walk around, or you're just being a little melodramatic?
Let me show you State's Exhibit 144.
It perhaps may be Sketty Nona. It's definitely an interesting case.
Deputy Wolf, is it true in 144 that picture shows a person
Sandy,
who's
he was totally looking
Hard
at
to tell,
me,
there's a
girl.
bit of a shadow in that.
I think he's
Can you
looking
see
at
me on
both
that?
of us.
When you went to 200 Tyndall, to execute that search warrant, did you go by yourself?
No, sir.
There were numerous police officers on scene, isn't that right?
Yes.
And some of those police officers were armed, is that right?
The police officers, everyone's on.
And
Oh, getting salty,
you
sassy,
talked about how,
McCarty.
the winds complied that day, isn't that true?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true,
Exactly,
my
Sketty
client,
Nona.
Mr. Hughes complied. didn't he?
No
Yes, sir.
drama. Me neither, Jacqueline. But Detective
So
McCarty
you
is
testified
looking
in
fly.
2021, you were working in homicide, is that correct?
I was up there for a brief period of time to assist them. So,
And you said you're back on the road now in Bravo Platoon?
yes, sir.
Are you a supervisor in Bravo Platoon?
I'm a master deputy. I have several deputy twos that work under me as a supervisor.
He's a
Is there a
master
sergeant on that platoon as
deputy.
well? And-
There is.
So how long, so I need to be clear, were you ever assigned to homicide?
Yes,
How long were you there?
3 years.
And now
He
you're back
already
on
told you that. You weren't paying attention, but we were. 3 years in homicide. It doesn't look like the same bicycle to me, y'all. I'm gonna have to
You
go
were,
back.
Were you in this courtroom when Deputy Riley Stokes testified?
I'm gonna have to go back to the part of the video that has the truck with the bicycle in the back end, and I'm gonna do a screenshot and I'm gonna blow it up, and then tomorrow we're all gonna look at it and compare it to the bicycle that the guy is riding coming down the hill. Because to me, it doesn't look like the same bicycle. It doesn't even look like the bicycle that's in the courtroom. Looks like we got 3 different bicycles, in my opinion.
Yes, sir.
And you heard his testimony about the videos that were obtained from residences in Canterbury, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Common Sense, welcome. Good to see you.
Isn't it true? And I want to say it's 8:45 or 9 o'clock, something like that. Well, let me ask this. Do you recall when he said the first video was that was significant? The first time he saw any vehicle tracker in him?
I remember him talking about that. I don't remember the time frame of that video.
Is it true, though, that one second. I don't know anything else.
Okay, any redirect?
What was the date of that photo that he showed you regarding the beard that Mr. Mormon showed you?
October 11th of 2021.
2 days before the murder?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, just recross. You just testified on my cross-examination that you did not see a beard in that photo. Is that correct?
You can just see a shadow on his face. That's
Yeah,
it.
this is my question to you. Did you not just testify that you couldn't see a beard in that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
Ooh, boy, he was prancing around like a Shetland pony up there, wasn't he?
No, Your Honor.
You may step down.
That defense attorney got excited. He said, wait a minute. Didn't you just say you couldn't see a beard?
State will recall Kalen Ford.
Mm-hmm. Yep. A little bit contentious there. I'm disappointed with the person on the porch photos. No real scale shown to prove height. Is Skitty? No. Certainly, the guy on the porch doesn't look to be 6'5", right? And the door is like a standard size door. So it's a little, so far, I am not convinced. I think we're going to have another Charlie Adelson problem on our hands.
Ms. Ford, hello again.
Yeah, Jacqueline, he got salty, didn't he? He got
Do your
sassy.
background for the jury, but were you still involved in this case at the time that the home on Tyndall was being processed by law enforcement?
She's CSI.
When you were
Hey, Shelley, good to
involved,
have
were
you.
doing essentially the same procedure, same duties as you were at the Canebrake home?
Yes. This lady is CSI.
Were you tasked of going through the Tyndall home and taking photographs of that home?
I was.
Were you able to identify the rooms of the house?
Yes.
Were you able to identify which room was the defendant's room?
Yes.
How?
The homeowner stated it, and he had personal belongings in that room that were observed as well.
Okay. If I showed you pictures that you took in that room, would you recognize them?
Yes.
Thank you, Sketty Nona. If you guys would try to remember to hit the thumbs up, that would help a little bit. I would appreciate it. I think they're questioning her about his room now, right? Not the murder scene, but Zachary Hughes' room. Maybe there was blood found. Maybe there was DNA. If so, then I have to rethink the whole bicycle problem, right? Scary Nona. I think we should recall Detective McCarty. Excuse me, Judge. I think we'll need to be talking to him again. Skitty Nona, this is murder. We are not supposed to be having fun, okay? Come on, people.
What is State's Exhibits 126?
Exactly, Sketty Nona.
131.
Exactly, Jacqueline. Yep. Thank you, Sandy T.
Yes, I took these photographs.
All right, this time the state would move into evidence, State's Exhibit 126 through 131.
No objection.
No objection, 126 to 131.
I'm just going to go through these with you up here. What is 126?
So this is a photograph of a shoebox that had been located inside of his bedroom that contained multiple knives and sheets.
Multiple knives?
127?
That's a photograph from his bedroom. There was a storage bin that had the name Zach on the top.
How is that spelled, Zach?
ZACK.
$129.
This photograph shows a backpack and a pair of gloves, along with other miscellaneous items in the bedroom.
Were you involved at all with the processing of the bicycle that was recovered at the Tyndall address?
Yes.
And how specifically were you involved in the processing of that bicycle?
Once the bicycle was located in the garage, I photographed it. I then sprayed the bicycle with Blue Star and took swabs of different areas of the bike before it was actually collected.
What is Blue Star?
Blue Star is a presumptive reagent, a chemical reaction that can show the presence of blood.
Was there blood?
Are there any significant findings as a result of spraying the Blue Star?
The bike illuminated on the handles, the seat, and the pedals.
Oh, buddy.
Processing the bike.
I then took swabs from those 3 separate areas that glowed.
There we
Did you take swabs
go.
of the handlebars of the bike?
I did.
If I showed you those swabs,
Busted.
would you recognize them?
Yes.
Zachary, you're busted. You're going to be playing a different song, buddy.
Showing you State's Exhibit 98 and 99. Are those the swabs you used for the handlebars of the bike?
Yes.
Are those your initials on each?
Yes.
Is one for the left handlebar, one for the right?
Yes. 98 is from the right handlebar and 99 is from the left.
After you collected these swabs, what did you do with them?
They were submitted into evidence.
Ms. Ford, were you involved at all with the collection of evidence as it relates to the defendant himself?
Yes.
How exactly?
I took photographs of him and I also collected his buccal swabs.
If I showed you the buccal swabs you took from the defendant, would you recognize them?
Yes.
Jacqueline,
I'm gonna show you what's
blood
marked.
all over that bicycle. That's pretty damning.
Can you identify what I just handed you?
Yes, it is the buccal swab from Zachary Hughes.
Did you take several?
Yes.
Or did you take 2?
Yes.
Okay. Is that typical?
Yes.
After you collected these buccal swabs, what did you do with them?
They were submitted into evidence.
Ms. Ford, were you still involved in this case when John Mello returned back from Italy?
I was.
How were you involved specifically oriented towards Mr. Mello?
So I responded to the Greenville County Detention Center where he was being held at the time. I took photographs of him and I collected his buccal swabs as well.
One moment, Your Honor. Fine.
That's okay. Mine is too, Jacqueline.
Oh.
Been waiting for the Megan Boswell case. The jury is out. Last time I checked. Yeah, they got the case this afternoon, Sandy. I think they'll have a verdict tomorrow. I don't think it's going to be hard for them.
There's 2 of them?
Yes.
What did you do after collecting State's Exhibit 101?
That's
Those were
the
also submitted to evidence.
prosecutor.
Ms. Ford, I have no further questions for you.
You gotta be no questions for this witness. Thank you.
Say Allison Miller, right?
solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yeah.
Thank
I don't know who this is. Another law enforcement.
Please state your name for the record.
Sergeant Allison Wright.
Ms. Wright, where are you currently employed?
I'm currently employed with Greenville County Forensics,
How long have you been with them?
a little over 7 years.
So were you employed with them in 2021?
Yes, I was.
And what was your specific, in 2021, what was your specific role with the sheriff's office?
So I was with Greenville County Forensics. I was a field training officer.
And could you explain a little bit about what your roles and duties were in that?
As a field training officer, I went out on calls with some of the newer employees and helped train them. And then I trained the newer employees as they came in.
So that involved evidence collection and documentation?
Yes.
How are you involved in the present case?
I was requested to process the subject's vehicle.
Is that a 1999 Gold Ford Ranger?
Yes, it is.
Does that include taking photographs of that vehicle?
Yes, I photographed the vehicle.
When you're processing this truck, what other things are you doing going through it?
We first photographed the vehicle and then we searched it, or I apologize. We photographed the vehicle and then collected DNA swabs. We did the door handles, the tailgate handle, steering wheel, typical places that you would normally touch. And then after that, we searched it to see if there was anything of evidentiary value. And then at the end, we used Blue Star to search for or detect possible blood.
Now, was there any significant findings as a result of the use of the Blue Star?
We did have a few areas that illuminated.
And you say illuminated. Can you describe a little bit more as to what that indicates to you when you're going through and using Blue Star?
So Blue Star is used to detect blood. It shows the possible presence of blood. So when we spray it, we have a dark room. We'll spray the area, and if it illuminates, it'll illuminate like a blue color. That will indicate that there's possibly blood there.
And then subsequently is when you do DNA collection?
So I swabbed for DNA on multiple items beforehand, but then if it does illuminate, I will also either swab or collect the item.
I think she's nervous. Maybe, I mean, she looks pretty young, right? Yeah, Jacqueline, if there's DNA in the truck, we might as well not even watch the rest of the trial. It's gonna be a done deal there, right? Yeah, she looked like she might have had like her wisdom teeth taken out or something. That's true. Oh, maybe staring her down. Yeah, maybe, Vicky. Yeah. I have to tell you, I hate to say this because I love Scott Reich, right? But defense attorneys are pretty nerve-wracking. So you are sitting up there on the stand. You know that when it's their turn to question you, all they're doing is try to turn your words around. They're not really asking for authentic information.
Show you 146, states 146 to 157 and 159 to 163. Do you recognize, let me know if you recognize those photos as what you observed that day.
Yes, I took the photos that were in our vehicle bay.
Your Honor, this time the state moves into evidence states 146 to 157 and 159 through 163.
No objection. Without objection, states 146 to 157 and 159 to 163.
Show me states 147. What is that?
That is the vehicle at the incident location that technician Ford photographed.
Showing you 151. What is 151?
That is the insurance card found in the vehicle.
Mr. Hughes, I think your goose is cooked, buddy.
That is showing the truck bed of the vehicle at our vehicle processing bay.
Explain, why do you bring the car back?
We need Agent McCarty to help us sort
We
this
bring it back
out.
to a different location in order to have a secured location where we can take our time on processing it.
Can you show you states
They do,
154?
Scatty, yeah.
What is that display?
This is a picture of a gas can and ropes that were inside the toolbox in the bed of the truck.
I think Detective McCarty would have all the answers we need.
What is that?
Those are the items that were found behind the front seats, and there's a pair of gloves in there.
Okay, but gloves by
you
themselves are
160.
not nefarious. And those gloves have never been opened.
That was a pack of gloves that was located behind the seats in the vehicle.
They've never been opened.
And just going back to 160. How many pairs of gloves does it say are in that pack?
It says there are 6 pairs.
It's a crazy case, Sandy T.
There's 6 pairs of gloves in that?
No, there were 5 pairs located.
And
Is
finally,
Mr.
163.
Hughes a serial killer?
That's showing the bed of the truck and the toolbox that was in the bed of the truck.
Oh my God, is that true, Jacqueline? Like Letitia Stalk. My goodness.
Talk just a little bit more about Blue Star.
Luminol.
Is blood the only thing that Blue Star might use a hit on?
No, there are some additional false positives that Blue Star can illuminate on.
What are some things that they could give a
Semen.
Cleaning supplies are one, as well as bleach is a big one. Some plants can actually illuminate as well, or different paints and tarnish.
That's right. I have no further questions for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, McCutie. She's cute, isn't she? Unless in self-defense. Maybe this is going to be a self-defense defense. There you go, Nancy Drew. See, I didn't think of that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our afternoon break.
Oh, Lordy.
Among yourselves.
Lordy,
And
Lordy. Let's go through the break. Because it's almost midnight. She looks like a refined woman, a gentle woman. McSnazzy.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do, thank you.
Dr. McSnazzy. Look at that houndstooth coat. You're looking good, sister.
Thank you so much.
I bet she's a psychologist or a doctor.
Vanessa Cormelo.
Oh, no.
Cormylo.
I was wrong.
Cormelo, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you please tell the jury a little bit about what you do for a living?
I'm a practicing family law attorney, mostly in Greenville County. I've been practicing 28 years.
Vanessa,
predominantly family law.
you are
I have
looking
some clients,
fly,
but mostly
sister.
family law,
Look
representing
at
litigants,
you.
and also representing
Rocking
children in
that
court
big
when they serve
button.
as guardian ad litem.
That's a big button, isn't it?
That is an advocate for the child who's appointed in family court cases when there are issues involving the children, such as visitation issues or custody issues. A guardian's appointed. It's typically an attorney, but sometimes we have some non-attorneys that are awesome. And so that's just part of our system. When a case involves a child, we do an investigation. We're kind of an arm of the court.
I think you kind
and
of dropped
we
the
report
ball
back
on
our
this case,
findings to
didn't
the
you,
judge.
sister? Huh? Why'd you
And
move that
how are
baby
you
so
involved
many
in
times?
This case, the state against.
I bet
Zachary
that was
Hughes?
against the behavioral
In the
specialist
case against Zachary
advice.
Hughes, I came into a little bit of this case because I was the guardian ad litem for the child of the mother who was murdered.
Christina Parcell.
Yes.
And John Mello.
Yes.
When were you appointed the guardian ad litem of Ida Mello?
In October of 2020.
How old was Ida when you were appointed?
I believe she was 8.
So getting a little bit into this, as guardian ad litem, are you responsible for communicating with the father and the mother of the child?
Yes, I typically.
Right now, she's sitting there thinking, in a minute, they're all going to know I messed up.
We start with the parents, the parties. We talk to third parties, go visit the child at the school, of course, talk to the child a good bit. And then by the time we get to court,
that
I
is a serious button,
and talk to way
Jacqueline.
more people, and I prepare a written report before the trial.
So in October of 2020, where was Ida Mello?
She was in Italy.
So were you able to contact her while she was over there?
It is Sandy T.
I
It's
had her father's email
1.25.
address, and Mr. Mello and I would email back and forth. He did not
Sandy.
necessarily cooperate in allowing me to speak with him or the child. There was one time I was going to get to speak with her. He wanted to script my questions, and I didn't want to put her in an uncomfortable position, so I waited to meet her until she came back.
So
Yep.
I think you touched on it, but by what
That's
method
right.
did you communicate with Mr. Mello?
Email only.
Yep. That's exactly what's going through her mind right now. She's going, in a minute, they're all going to know I dropped the ball. She messed up.
Was Ida Mello ever eventually returned to the United States?
Yes, in April of 2021, the Hague Convention, the international body that helps enforce different custody rulings, ordered that Aida return to South Carolina, and then the mother was awarded custody here by agreement.
So once Ada had returned to South Carolina,
She says, here it
what developed
comes.
as far as
Here it comes. I got to say it.
that
I got to
custody
tell them.
dynamic,
Look
specifically
at her.
with regard to your role?
So the parents were in contested custody litigation.
Yeah.
The mother wanted Aida to stay here, of course, with her. Mr. Mello was in Italy, and I think there were some criminal charges that he was working through before he could return here. So they were just in what I would consider very highly contested litigation.
And you
Mr.
were
Mello
supposed to
regularly
protect that
emailed
baby.
me, and he was a very difficult litigant to manage.
So speaking to this,
He was in
particular
prison,
dispute,
honey.
Was this the first time? But let me back up. Was it your role upon being appointed guardian ad litem to investigate a little bit into the history between the custody dynamic?
Yes, typically I'll speak to the prior guardian ad litem if there was an older case. In this case, sadly, the parents had been fighting since Aida was 3. So there were several cases, Greenville County and Pickens, and I was able to talk to the prior guardian ad litem and increasingly grew concerned about Mr. Mello.
Yeah, but you didn't do anything.
You said you communicated with Mr. Mello through email.
Nancy
Was
Drew.
that primarily the method of communication, or like the only method of communication?
It was the only method of communication except one phone call I had with him.
So over the course of your role as guardian ad litem, approximately how many emails did you exchange with Mr. Mello?
I don't even know if I could count them. I know when we printed them for the family court trial, I think it was 3 or 4 reams of paper.
So also in the course of once Aida returns from Italy, did Mr. Mello continue to communicate with you?
Yes, he was continuing to communicate, harass, threaten, intimidate, bully. His communications were unlike anything I've ever encountered as guardian.
Is that
And
what
so they
made you
continued
drop
to
the ball?
escalate, and
Is that why
I
you
was
didn't protect
pretty
that baby?
concerned.
So I'm not getting into the specifics of maybe some of the things that he messaged you, but what kind of, when you say threats and harassment, what kinds of things was he conveying to you?
He would tell me that I always needed to be looking over my shoulder,
Mm.
that he was coming after my license, that I was going to get arrested for criminal charges or civil charges, that I was
Why did you move that baby 5 times, especially if you were under threat by the biological father? Why didn't you let that baby stay with the mother's sister?
definitely going to jail. He mentioned my children to me by name with specific information about them at one visitation I had with him. He put terrible things on the internet about me.
Mr. Hughes, after careful consideration, I have come to the conclusion that you are very poor at picking good friends.
Including my office address and phone number. He actually included my husband in his posts. He said awful things, that we were trafficking children.
Exactly, Jacqueline.
Ukrainian children through Spartanburg. That's like on the internet. It was Facebook and Reddit, and at one point he had said I
You
was
were
manufacturing
the
child
guardian ad
pornography in my office
litem.
and put my
Nobody
address and
cares
phone
if
number
you were
right
under
there.
threat. You were doing your
So
job.
he was definitely fired up.
And once you assumed this role and this line of communication began, did you receive similar types of emails from, let's say, third parties?
Yes, I would start receiving emails early on, not just from Mr. Mello, but from other people on his behalf, multiple.
You know what? Here's the truth. When you start messing with people's kids, you're in danger, right? I'm not talking about good parents. Any parent, even if they're the most horrible parent on the planet, when someone perceives that you are interfering in their personal family business, they can get really unhinged. I had about 9 months, maybe 8, 9 months, if I remember correctly, where I had a armed guard that would wait for me in the morning, and I would drive up and he would escort me into the building all the way to my office. And then at the end of the day, he'd escort me back out to my car for me to go home. So parents can get really, really messed up when they think that someone is trying to interfere or take away their parental rights, and that is not what was happening in my case. That wasn't what was happening at all. I was just doing therapy with a kid that had already been removed. And you know, he wanted me to speak up on his behalf, and that wasn't going to happen. So
different. One was an attorney, one was a private investigator, allegedly. One was a saint. One was
that's a very good question, Nancy Drew.
Addresses with very similar threats and characterizations of me and the litigation, and they would definitely be arguing on behalf of Mr. Mello.
Would you attempt to follow up with these individuals when they reached out to you?
Yes, I would typically try and return an email, try and find out who the sender was, try and verify if they were real. We had suspicions that many of them were Mr. Mello himself.
I wonder if any of them were Zachary and
He used a lot of the same
Hughes.
phrasing. He writes in a very unusual manner using capitals at different times and has absolutely terrible spelling. So we could see a lot of similarities in these third-party emails, which caused us to believe they were likely him. And then, like for instance, if an attorney emailed me and I couldn't find that attorney anywhere, or a private investigator emailed me and I never could find that private investigator, I really was left with the only conclusion that it was likely Mr. Mello.
So
now that
going
sounds
to
like a
October,
cognitive distortion to me, young
back up a little
lady.
bit. So as this developed, with you in the role as guardian ad litem, what findings did you make as to the lengths that Mr. Mello would go to get custody back of Ida?
He was very
Sketty Nona, I was just looking at what you were writing in the side chat. So there, I don't know, medications and all that. Somebody said something about melatonin. There is a new class of antidepressant it targets different neurotransmitters than our regular SSRIs and SNRIs. It is called, here in the United States, the brand name is called Trintellix, Trintellix, and has really, really low side effects profile. Maybe you might talk to your healthcare provider and ask about trying the Trintellix. One of the results of Trintellix is people are reporting better sleep. They're getting a return of dreaming. And the reason that's significant is if you're dreaming, you're going into REM sleep. So anytime you get a medicine that starts saying that you're dreaming, that's good. That's not, a lot of the sleep medications make you fall asleep, but you're staying in a really shallow sleep. So a medication that will make you actually sleep deep enough that you're having dreams, that's what you're looking for. Alcohol, benzodiazepines, they are the worst thing to take if you have insomnia, because you're only going to stay like in level 1 and 2 sleep. You don't get into that deep, even stage 3 or 4 sleep. So, but Trintellix has been kind of one of the unintentional side effects seems to normalize sleep patterns. So you may talk to your doctor about it.
Very clear that there was nothing off limits. He was, like I said, threatening, harassing, intimidating, and he was consistently doing it, these hundreds and hundreds of emails. Sometimes he was represented by attorneys, sometimes he was not. And
yeah, I hope it works.
This was the worst case I've ever worked on as far as representing a child's interest, but at the same time, having a parent act like that. It came to
that's shocking to me for her to say it's the worst case she ever worked on, because really working in family court with foster care system, there are a lot of unhinged people out there. It can get very, very scary at times. I wonder if his behavior is the reason why they couldn't seem to come up with a good placement for the child. And why in the hell, after what she's just described, who in their right mind would let that man have that baby girl? I am horrified after listening to this, that ultimately she ended up living with John Mello. So the daughter's living with John Mello. Just horrifying.
To the point, even early on, I think in May of 2021, I brought a motion to the court as the child's guardian, asking for a psychological evaluation of him and asking that the mother be allowed to end phone calls if the child was uncomfortable.
Phone calls.
Regarding that item, did you ever receive some, let's just say, suspect envelopes in the mail?
Yes.
If I showed you that envelope, would you recognize it?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's marked as State's Exhibit 158. Is that the envelope or a envelope you received?
Yes. This is addressed to me at my office on Washington Street. It is dated July 8th of 2021, and it came from Knoxville, Tennessee. Per the mail carrier, the return address references a P.O. box here in Greenville, which we later learned belonged to Brad Post.
Brad Post. Oh my goodness.
Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh my goodness.
Did you see the date?
What did these people have going on? So you're saying that John Mello is sending these things to you, but you receive an envelope from Brad Post. Were these three men working together, y'all? This is crazy.
July, and I think it was 2021.
Okay. July 8th, sound right?
Yes. Sorry.
That's all right. Not getting into the specifics, and I realize it's unpleasant, but generally, what were the contents of this envelope?
They involve
Yeah, that's good for sleep,
pictures of
Jacqueline.
Christina Parcell and
It
various
gets in,
states of
you get into a
undress.
deep sleep with that.
One included a male anatomy body part in one of the pictures. They were basically pornographic in nature. Yes.
What did
Poor
you do
little
after receiving
dog.
this envelope?
I called law enforcement.
Okay. Did you
Is she
submit it
about to
them,
cry?
I did.
Okay. Was that the only envelope you received?
No.
When did you receive another?
I think it was about a month later. We received another envelope from Knoxville, Tennessee, with the same PO box return address. So this time we actually just called law enforcement to come get the envelope rather than opening it.
And in the context of what you've testified to, would sending something like this be in line with John Mello's actions in the custody dispute?
Yes, this would be in line with also what he emailed, how he conducted himself. He was determined to discredit and disparage and ruin the reputation and character of the mother. He was in a custody battle, so he was determined for her to be thought of in a certain light and hopefully be determined to be unfit.
I want to make sure I understand this. She says that these communications came from the father of Christina's daughter, John Mello, who was in Italy, who is a friend of the defendant, Zachary Hughes, correct? However, on the envelope, it had the fiance's name, Bradley Post. So they all had to be working together, y'all. It had to be a ring, maybe like a P file ring. Oh my God, this is a nightmare.
So at the time you received these, let's say in July and August of 2021, what is the posture of the custody dispute?
We were just moving right along. I think I had the motion for
Poor
him to have a
baby.
psychological evaluation.
He needs
The
longer
mother had
legs.
custody at that time. Of course, even though I had reason to be concerned about Mr. Mello and how he conducted himself, I also had a duty to investigate the allegations he was making against the mother. And I did that to the best of my ability. I've never done
Thank
this
you,
before, but I
Nancy
actually had a
Drew.
private investigator to look into things for me. I tried to find out if there was anything true about the allegations he was making, because this little girl was in that woman's home. And her interests were my duty. So I tried my best to interview people, research, work with a private investigator, and that my duty is ongoing.
Okay, you know what? As guardian ad litem, you have the right not to request a psychological evaluation. You have the right and the responsibility to demand a psych eval for John Mello and for the mother. You could also have requested it for the sister because the daughter was living in the house with the sister. Why is she being so hesitant, I wonder? That is man, we got to be tough. Guardian ad litems have got to be tough. And a lot of them seem to be afraid to take that role. I threatened one time. I don't mean it bodily harm, but there was a weird, very strange situation happened. The foster child, little like 5-year-old little girl, the child had been taken across state lines. And so the foster family that she had been with, something happened. They said they couldn't keep her for some reason, and they found another family, but it was across state lines. And the driver who drove the child across state lines, which they weren't supposed to do because it was like a state CPS worker. So going across state lines, you would have had to have the order of a judge, and they didn't, but drove across state lines and said, well, I met the new foster family at a church that was in the middle of the woods, and we made the handoff there. And I was trying to figure out, well, who was it? Did you check the papers? Did you take a photograph of the paperwork? Like, how do you know you gave her to the right people? Like, what do you? And it was such a mess. No, the driver seemed confused, and basically, to make a long story short, we were having a Kentucky blizzard, and nobody knew where the little girl was, right? And it was horrible weather, and all this was happening in the middle of the night. And I got on the phone with the guardian ad litem, and I told him, everything that was happening, because I was in distress. I was panicked. And I told him everything that happened, and he said, okay. He said, well, the roads are kind of bad. He said, so I'll be sure to look into this tomorrow morning. And my head felt like it popped off. And I said, no, we're not talking about tomorrow morning. We're talking about right now, this minute. You have to get the paperwork for the placement wherever this child's supposed to be, drive to that house, and you put eyeballs on that child. I don't mean for them to tell you, oh, she's asleep, don't worry. You tell them, wake her up, bring her out, I want to see her. And if you don't, your face and name is going to be all over the 6 o'clock news tomorrow night. I promise. So that's what I mean by when I said I threatened, not bodily harm, but I said, this is a baby, and you're indirect. You have to be the one to protect her. So it was a horrible situation, but again, another guardian ad litem that was too meek, too hesitant, right? And yeah, so ultimately we did find her, and she was safe, and everything turned out great. So
and through the end of the trial. So that's what I had to do. Of course,
exactly,
I talked to the mother
Nancy,
about the pictures and determined they were very old and in a consensual setting. So I did look into these things. I didn't just write them off because he was so unstable.
You mentioned accusations that John Mello would make. Would he accuse Ms. Parcell of using drugs?
He did. That was a large part of his concern about her. So at least as guardians, we can investigate that fairly easily. We asked her to take one, I think, even more drug screens to see.
You can get her to do a drug screen every week.
And since she was living with her sister at the time, we asked her to be drug screened.
Exactly, Jacqueline. It's weird.
I think at one point the child was even drug tested in a corresponding case.
Good.
So
good.
We did investigate that. We found no evidence of any drug use.
Okay, then why'd you give the baby back to the crazy man?
The private investigator also did not see any type of dealing in and out of the home.
Oh my God.
Had you been asked to make the recommendation, would you have recommended Ida to stay with Christina Parcell?
Yes. So in family court, we're actually not allowed to make recommendations to the court unless we're asked by a judge.
And the judge always asks you.
Yes,
the judge always asks.
My position was in visiting her in school and talking to her teacher. She was thriving here. She was doing so well in her mother's custody, living with her aunt. They had Taco Tuesdays, and anyway, she loves sushi.
Why didn't you do everything you should have done? You should have gotten a psych eval. Little girl should have had a psychologist. The psychologist can make recommendations to the family court judge, and they listen to the guardian ad litems too. I don't think I've ever been involved in one of these cases that the judge didn't ask the guardian ad litem their opinion on the healthiest placement. And they always ask us for a statement. So I don't know. I think she dropped the ball. I think this guy scared her, right? And he does sound like he was a scary guy. And I think she was, just trying to keep things calm and quiet, trying not to rock the boat.
She had an avocado, and she was just living a very full life. When I visited, she was riding bikes with the neighbor kids, making friendships, and doing so well. So at the time, yes, that would have been my recommendation if we had gone to trial before the mother's murder.
So at the time of the murder, would John Mello have been aware of any reports or recommendations that would have been negatively oriented towards him?
He would definitely have been aware of my motion to have him psychologically evaluated. He would be aware of my concerns about him through our hundreds, if not thousands, of emails back and forth. I'm I don't hold back when I'm the guardian. So if he's making allegations and I'm asking him, please substantiate these. If you're going to accuse the mother of this, please give me substantiation and I will investigate this. If he says neighbors are watching something, please give me the neighbors' names. I have the ability as guardian to bring a motion before the court.
Yes, you do.
To have her removed.
You have
The
you have
court
a lot of
has
power as
substantiation
ad
of the
litem.
concerns, and he would just play games and tell me he couldn't give me the names of the witnesses he knew about because he needed to save them when he sued me in civil litigation.
Oh my
And
God.
so he was very aware that I was not a fan of how he conducted himself. If you're worried about a child enough to make substantial allegations, and this guardian is appointed only for her interests, please work with me. Even if we had differences, set them aside, help me help your child. And he was definitely not cooperative.
So before the murder on October 13th, 2021, when was the last time that Mr. Mello saw Ida?
Prior to the murder?
Prior to the murder.
He would have seen her last in Italy when Christina, the mother, flew over to get her per the Hague order and fly her home. So I think he had seen her there in Italy. To my knowledge, he had not returned to our country until after the murder.
So that would have been April of 2021?
Yes.
Any significance?
Wonder why they didn't bring
Time span from April to
conspiracy
October of 2020?
charges. Wonder why they didn't bring conspiracy charges, conspiracy to commit murder. Wonder why they didn't do that.
One with regard to the custody dispute and the positioning of parties?
Well, in family court.
Oh
they
yeah,
really
Jacqueline,
look
it's a
at how
night.
often you see your
And the
child
sister,
and supporting your
Jacqueline.
child financially.
Tina loved that little
And
girl.
we have a mechanism in family court statutory that says if you don't visit your child willfully for 6 months, and if you don't pay child support for your child for a period of 6 months, your rights can actually be terminated if the court determines that's in the child's best interests. So a lot of parents are pretty sensitive to the 6 month mark.
In October was that 6 month mark? Is that correct?
That would be right.
Do you know who the defendant is?
I'm familiar with his face, yes. I don't think I've ever met him in person.
Let's say prior to October 13th of 2021, did you know who he was?
So when you're a guardian ad litem, both parents give you lists of character witnesses they would like you to interview in relation to their case. And so the first time I saw Mr. Hughes' name would have been May of 2021. And I received that through Mr. Mello's attorney at the time, as he was on a list of character
Holy
witnesses
hell.
to interview, for me to
Wow.
interview on behalf of Mr. Mello.
Did he take any actions
Wow.
with regard to the custody situation? I'm speaking of Mr. Hughes. Did he take any actions with regard to the custody situation after the murder?
After the murder, I'm not sure of.
Okay.
Before the murder, he prepared an affidavit
Okay.
to support Mr. Mello regaining custody of his daughter. And he also worked with local attorneys, helping Mr. Mello procure representation and in that line.
I'm going to show you what is State's Exhibit 164.
Zachary Hughes is not a very smart guy, is he? He was all over this case. Wow, that is unbelievable.
I'm showing you State's Exhibit 164.
Unless John Mello set him up.
Yes, this is the affidavit he prepared for court. He prepared it in September of 2021, September 21st, which we thought was unusual because there was nothing pending at that particular time. And then in October after the murder, we were in court for a hearing about where Aida would live after her mom was murdered. And this affidavit was used in that motion.
Your Honor, this time, the state moved into evidence State's Exhibit 164.
No objection. But 64 comes in.
Thank you, Judge. So I want to clarify this timeline here. So
She's
September
very nervous,
of
isn't she?
2021, what purpose would this affidavit have in the custody dispute? Or was there a place for this affidavit in the custody dispute to be needed?
Okay, so in family court, trials involve live testimony like today. Hearings involve affidavits, which are just sworn statements, that are notarized. So we prepare them in relation to motions that we file. To my knowledge, there was no motion pending at the time that affidavit was prepared.
And this was filed October 22nd.
Absolutely, Nancy Drew. Yes.
And at that time, of course, after the murder, we all kind of filed what we could because you have
Guardian ad litem,
motherless
sort of like
immigrant,
God,
a
you know?
child who doesn't have her mom, and her dad's in Italy. And so her placement in custody was in question.
So it's only 9 days after the murder that this is filed.
Correct. And we were back in court dealing with Aida's placement at that time.
Wow, it's terrible. So sad. Poor little girl.
I want to go back briefly. Speaking of these emails you received from third parties, what were some of those parties? Were those individuals, purported individuals that you could recall?
There was an attorney named Sophia Carlucci. There was an investigator. The email said Mullins Investigations. There was a saint. I'm drawing a blank. I can't remember. It was a saint somebody. There was a guy who wrote me as a biker dude with this particular experience he wanted to share with me. And then there was a Mitch Rubin. I don't know what profession he was, but he actually emailed one of our judges in our case, and that's not acceptable.
So specifically, you said Mullen Investigations. You received emails from this
Yes.
entity? Did you try to identify who that was?
Sure. I searched on the internet, tried to find any investigations, any investigator named Mullins, company named Mullins Investigations.
Any success there?
I could not find them.
Was Sophia Carlucci one of these individuals that reached out to you?
Yes, she was very involved with helping Mr. Mello.
And I'm looking at these emails that you received specifically from Sophia Carlucci. Did you notice anything peculiar about any of those emails that helped identify who might have sent them?
Sure. As attorneys, we kind of have a bad rap, but we try to actually be civil toward one another for the most part. She was not civil in any way. She's never met me. She's writing these hateful communications, very insulting, very similar to Mr. Mello's tone. And a lot of times some of the phraseology would be identical to how Mr. Mello would address me and email me. I tried, and sometimes I would try to see if the sheriff's office could help with tracking the emails, but if they were from proton.com or there were other ways we could never really seem to trace them. And I'm not really good at that computer forensic stuff, but I could never find the source of the emails. But my suspicion was a lot of them seemed to talk a lot like Mr. Mello.
Did you ever mistakenly send one from one of those, send an email? From
Don't you hire private investigators, ma'am? Because there are hackers that all they do is work for attorneys. So that's hard to believe you couldn't find out where the emails were originating from.
Yes, there was an email one time from Sophia Carlucci, from John, I think, in Sophia Carlucci's email. So it's like he was emailing me, but he used Sophia Carlucci's name and information.
Thank you. I have no further questions for you.
Cross-exam. Sure.
I'm going to ask you to step out. I have a matter I need to take up with the attorneys.
Here we go.
The Asian woman looks like she's overdosing on Adderall, doesn't she? He's got a lot of family members there for him.
Self, because of the way the emails were worded. He used a lot of the same phrasing. He writes in a very unusual manner using capitals at different times and has absolutely terrible spelling. So
Here we go.
I'm so confused. Like, are they ending it for today?
All right, Mr. Mormon.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you so much. We got a new member, y'all. Yay, thank you.
I believe that as part of your job as a guardian ad litem was to familiarize yourself with the course of litigation and prior cases. Is that correct?
yes,
Isn't it true that based on your review of the history of the case, the litigation, there had been at least 3 prior cases. Is that correct?
yes, that sounds right.
And isn't it true that in each of the cases, Christina Parcell agreed to give John Mello custody? Isn't that true?
That's my understanding.
You were asked a little bit about John Mello and I being in Italy. Do you remember that?
Yes,
And as part of your duties as the guardian ad litem during this period, was it your obligation to familiarize yourself just a little bit with what was going on with the litigation in Italy?
with the Hague Convention.
And just in general terms, what the status was of the litigation and what the outcome was?
Yes, I was following that. Yes.
Based on your interaction with Christina during this period, what was your understanding as to who was financing the litigation in Italy?
I'm not sure. I know her sister was helping. I think she bought the plane tickets. I don't think she had an attorney. I think she was self-representing or whatever you do with the Hague Convention. But
Did you also think it was possible that Mr. Post was financing the litigation?
maybe part of the family court litigation, maybe. But as far as being in Italy and that part, he may have paid for bodyguards while she was there. I think I heard something about that, but I don't know for sure, and I don't want to misspeak.
Understand. But you think he was helping finance the litigation in the States?
Possibly. I've definitely heard that.
Your Honor, I don't have anything else. We would ask Ms. Warren for any notice if you didn't do that.
Okay. Any redirect?
Nothing from the state.
Okay. You may step down.
Thank you.
Quick witness.
No, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want to thank you again. Sometimes I have to ask you to step out just because I have certain matters that I need to take up with the attorneys. And if you weren't here, I would just, so, or if you were in here, I would not be able to get into all those details. I just, again, want to thank you. I told you I sound like a broken record, but again, I just can't stress how important it is that you are prohibited from watching any TV coverage.
He's a really friendly guy, isn't he? I like him.
And just.
Yeah,
for the sake of
Sandy,
this
he's
trial,
sweet.
Justice and fairness to the defendant's state, that you're only to consider the evidence that comes in from this courtroom. And again, not to discuss it among yourselves or anybody. Okay.
And he
We
has
will be
like
back
a,
at 9:30 in the morning.
he has like
And
a,
again, I'm so grateful for each and every one of
like
you.
a kind smile. He did, Sketty Nona. Yeah. You need some of those glasses, Sketty Nona. They just hang around the back of your neck. And then when you need to use them, you put the magnets together and then they're glasses again. Okay, looks like they're finished. That's all we get. All right. Well, so there we have it. So we got day 2 behind us. Yeah. And tomorrow will be day 3. And so I guess we will go out like we started this thing, which is, hold on, let me find it. It's here somewhere. There it is. Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate you guys. And thank you, Shelly, for becoming a new member. Just makes my heart swell with joy. I appreciate it. I hope that everybody has subscribed and hit the thumbs up. And we will be back again tomorrow to continue, try to figure out how in the world Zachary Hughes got hooked up with this crazy situation. And, you know, is he really the one that did the dirty deed? All right. You guys sleep very well tonight. I'll see you tomorrow.